Good evening. It is 5:15 this Monday evening, October 10th, and the Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you all please join me with me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, roll call, all are present. First, item number 3 on tonight's agenda is Fire Prevention Week proclamation. And Dan, you're here. I will go ahead and read this in its entirety, so bear with me. City of Carroll Mayor's Proclamation, effective today. Whereas the City of Carroll is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting Carroll, and whereas a home fire escape plan includes 2 exits from every room in the home, a path to outside from each exit, smoke alarms in all required locations, and a meeting place outside where everyone in the home will meet upon exiting. And whereas home fire escape plans should be developed by all members of the household, and whereas a home fire escape plan provides the skill set and know-how to quickly and safely escape a home fire situation. And whereas practicing a home fire escape plan twice a year ensures that everyone in the household knows what to do in a real fire situation. And whereas Carroll's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas the 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme is, quote, "Fire won't wait, plan your escape," end of quote, effectively serves to educate the public about the vital importance of developing a home fire escape plan with all members of the household and practicing it twice a year. Therefore, I, Mark E. Beardmore, Mayor of Carroll, Iowa, do hereby proclaim October 9th through 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week throughout this community. I urge all the people of Carroll to develop a home fire escape plan with all members of their household and practice it twice a year, and to participate in the many public safety activities and efforts of Carroll's fire and emergency services throughout the year. Adopted and passed by the Council of the City of Carroll this 10th day of October 2022. Misty's now? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then we would like to get a picture of you and Dan.
You got it. Brace yourself. We're having a picture taken. Good here?
Yep, you're good there.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, following that, we have tonight's consent agenda, and the council received all of this in their packets, and I'll read the consent agenda contained herein. Is the approval of the minutes from both the September 26th and October 5th meetings. We have approval of this cycle's bills and claims. We have 1 liquor license to approve. That's a new 5-day Class C liquor license with Hy-Vee serving the Family Resource Center fundraiser on November 3rd. We have 2 reports of bid openings for mowers. One is a 100 12-inch front mower for the golf division, and the second one, a 12-foot rotary mower for the Parks division. Is there any questions or comments about tonight's consent agenda? If not, I would favor a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ordinance.
Yes.
Shrek. Yes. Dirks.
Yes.
Base. Yes. Bauer.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Resolution, or excuse me, the consent agenda is approved.
Thank you. Item number 5 on tonight's agenda is oral requests and communications from the audience. This is on any item that is not in tonight's agenda. So if you're here for something that's in the agenda, we'll wait for those comments. But if you have a comment or a request from anything that's not on the agenda, you can please step forward now. Are there any? Any online? No. Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6 under ordinances. We have the second reading of a proposed restricted parking on Birch Street, and this follows Carroll City Council Ordinance Chapter 6908. And this would be an amendment to that. Brad?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a second reading, like the mayor had said. Since the last council meeting that we had this reading, I have not had any feedback from anyone in the public. I did ask the fire chief to give me an actual measurement of a fire truck, and he provided that's 9 foot 5 inches wide from mirror to mirror, I believe is how we measured that. And the Birch Street is 29 feet from back of curb to back of curb, so it kind of gives you an idea of how wide the truck is compared to the rest of the roadway. A vehicle average is probably about 6 to 7 foot in width, so you can park side by side. You're roughly 14 foot, leaving you just a couple of feet on each side of a fire truck if it was passing through, with cars on both sides. So the ordinance is still attached. If you have any questions about that, feel free to answer them. And otherwise, my suggestion is to have the second reading for this ordinance.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brad. And you received no other comments from 2 weeks ago?
Nothing since
Nothing
the last
new.
council meeting. No, nothing
Okay.
new.
All right. I received just one, but that was opposed to it. But other than that, that's the only response that I had. So anybody from the council?
I've had none.
I'm never opposed to it. My recommend, can we put this on hold and let them see how they do for 6 months? Has there been any accidents that are required down there for that? I've driven several times since we've had this, last time we visited, and seemed to have corrected itself, so I can't remember his name. Todd, that brought it up last time. So they were gonna talk as a group or a neighborhood to try to make sure that it takes care of itself. Is there any way we can just wait a little bit and see what happens?
If that's the council's wishes. But, I mean, yeah, tonight's the night for the second reading, and, we can have, a couple options to, approve the second reading and wait for the third, or we could, approve both second and third readings, or if it's the council's wishes to just put it off, that can be done too. It's just whatever the council decides.
I will tell you that, because obviously that's my block, so I'll just chime in. We've had conversations with Todd, my husband did, and this is not directed at Todd. This is directed at the entire road from this block to that block, because at the end of this south end of that block, if there are people in that neighborhood having gatherings, you can't get around the corner. So it's not just what's happening at the center of the block where Todd lives. This was not poked just at him. So there is a ton of traffic on that far end. That's just my personal experience. When you have a lot of cars down there, it's really hard to turn the corner. It's usually in the evenings. So, and it goes all the way to 18th. There's another home up there that has a lot of traffic too from Chinatown. So I know we have, some streets have no parking on one side and none on the other, and some don't have any. So I'm just letting you know that there's a lot of parking on that street.
Brad, I was going to ask you, this is since I've been the mayor, this is the second time in a short 10 months, we restricted one up around Second and Elm Street, not too terribly long ago in the spring sometime.
There's a few that come up. I have to look at exact dates.
I was just gonna say, how often do these come up, and is it?
It's typically complaint based. We don't have any set protocols saying if the street's this wide or that wide, do we have to have
Right.
restrictions? So it's been typically complaint based
Okay,
or accident based. And typically those present stop signs at those types of issues.
can you recall any that have ever been lifted or reversed?
I cannot.
Okay,
Randy's guys put them in and take them out. I take it back. We did change some parking on Walnut Street. We didn't completely remove it. We did make some changes to it.
yeah.
And that was.
Is that the one I'm thinking of?
It's potentially,
Okay.
it was
One of
Walnut.
those wood streets?
Yeah, it was Walnut and, was it Bluff?
Yeah,
Oh, Randy.
that is where it was. Thank you.
Or Anthony, it might have been Anthony.
Yeah.
So we have removed some in the past.
Okay. What's the council's wishes? Any other comments? So would there be a motion to approve the second reading? And if so, waive the third, or just approve that, or what's your wishes?
I'm sorry, am I able to comment?
You are now. Yep. Name and address again, Todd.
My name is Todd Jansonius. My family and I have lived at 1534 Birch Street for a little over 32 years. I want to start off by saying that, speaking for myself and my family, I believe these parking congestion issues are already solved, at least on our part of Birch Street. We were unaware that we were causing anyone a problem until the last council meeting, but the examples given by several council people involved our specific vehicles. I admit that after receiving the letter, I did have my suspicions, which is why I attended the meeting, and the discussion confirmed this. We have since made a point to keep our vehicles in the driveway as much as possible, not park across a neighboring driveway, and not park vehicles exactly across from each other on Birch Street. I'm sure if any of you have taken the time to drive down Birch lately, you will have found no congestion, at least on our part of the block. Again, now that we are aware that there are issues with our parking, it's not been hard for us to remedy the situation. That being said, prepared some visual aids in response to last meeting's discussion. The first pictures show that with the vehicles mentioned at the last meeting, which is a Ford Edge and a Ford truck, it's actually a full-size truck. It's not a small truck, as described, parked reasonably close to their respective curbs. There's a little over 3 feet of room on one side, over 3 feet on the other for this Ford Explorer. The same model vehicle that was described at the last meeting is barely fitting between these exact vehicles.
And Todd, if there's a red dot up on the display, do you see that dot there? Put the photo under that dot.
Under the one.
There,
You're
on the
right.
podium, there's a dot.
On the table in front of you.
There you go.
Displays up there. I can zoom in.
You guys have everything.
Thanks to you, the taxpayers.
These second set of pictures demonstrate that when the vehicles are parked closer to the curbs, now there is well over 3 feet of room on both sides for the Explorer, as demonstrated by the yardstick. The third picture depicts a worst-case scenario, a car trailer parked right across from a full-size truck. while this clearance is much less, and allowing that some drivers need more room to feel comfortable, there is still room for any size vehicle to safely get through. Again, I don't see this particular parking situation coming up again in the future. As I mentioned, we are hyper aware of causing any more congestion issues. Lastly, I started to collect signatures and do a petition. I decided against that. I thought that was kind of petty, and I don't think it really matters. I did talk to several people up and down the street that I saw outside. Several of those that I talked to that have children or grandchildren actually mentioned that parked vehicles tend to slow down the traffic. Some are members of the fire department, and they commented that Birch Street has never and would never be any more of a safety issue than any other similar street. Also, when someone has a graduation or other party during the holidays, this would be a parking disaster for both sides. Our street is no narrower than most residential streets in Carroll. It is not a through street. The congestion issues are already resolved, at least near our home. For these reasons, we feel that the parking restrictions are unnecessary and should not be voted into place. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Todd. While you're there, does anybody have any questions for Todd? None? Thank you.
No, I do.
Oh,
The one that you had on the trailer,
Yes.
what was the distance in between?
I didn't measure that,
Okay.
to be honest. I just have.
My question is, does a fire truck get down there?
Right. Right. Based on the picture, yes, you can just. Yes, I did not get out and measure that. But as I said, that situation will be avoided at all costs in the future. Thank you.
thank you too, Todd. So, once again, any further comments, or is there a motion to approve the second reading? Or what are your wishes? Everybody's looking at one another.
I
Is-
feel that we wait on this and we can revisit this in 6 months. If it's an issue later on, then we can put it into place.
Brad, have you gotten any other complaints on this particular street? Other than just this one?
No, when we sent the letter out, of course, and I got some responses. And I think I mentioned my first one, it was 50-50. Like I had 3 in support of and 3 opposed, or 6 and 6. I can't remember the exact number, but before that, no.
One of the things I did today was I got on Google Maps and I drove down that street, you know, seeing what it was roughly a year ago when they were around. And the street was pretty well open. There wasn't much on. I think I actually picked on Todd, for example, because I know he's got a motorhome or a trailer. The motorhome was in the driveway and there was a Bronco on the street, just one side. So I can't say that I recall vehicles being on both sides a year ago even. So I think, you know, neighbors are aware of the situation. I think it's nice to have parking on both sides, especially during holidays or family gatherings, stuff like that. You know, if it's an issue down the future, then I would be in favor of it, but
Our current code restricts motorhomes and trailers parked on the street already.
is that for over 24 hours or?
Loading, unloading only. So there's no time limit, it's just loading, unloading.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to agree with Kyle, because I don't think that there's a winner or loser in this whole deal, other than the person that gets designated to park in front of their house all the time. I mean, I wouldn't want that, but I think it all comes down to be dependent on him being a good driver. You know, we all got licenses and took the courses and should be able to drive accordingly to go down a street, you know? I personally wouldn't want my side designate to have all the parking. But that's just me, so, and I'm sure half of the whole block wouldn't want that either, so I'd say give them a trial period of 6 months and come back and revisit it.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess if the citizens are willing to step up and do something, to alleviate, then the government doesn't have to get involved in it, you know, overreach. So, I guess I'm respecting the fact that the citizens are willing to take this in their own hands and get rid of the problem, and if it doesn't happen, then we visit it again.
Very well. Do I hear then that there is not a motion to approve the second reading? If not, the measure fails, correct?
There's no motion, yeah,
No motion
so
on
no
the table.
council action taken.
Right.
Not a failure, it's just no action is taken.
Okay, does it mean we can take it up again in 2 weeks or 6 months?
So you'd have to start over again.
Oh, that's what I thought, so, okay. And you gotta wait 6 months for that, don't you? Or is it a year?
I don't think there's any time frame
Okay,
as far as revisiting the issue, because nothing was passed.
okay.
The ordinance was not passed.
Well, I've heard there's some interest in at least revisiting it in 6 months. That much I've heard. So if that's the case, and there's no motion to approve the second reading, then we will take no action on it and make note of it that we'll take it up again in 6 months. Is that all right with you, Chief?
Works fine with me.
Okay, very well. Move on to the next item. Brad, I think you're still on deck, aren't you?
Correct.
Carroll City Ordinance, Chapter 1.14, Amendment Standard Penalty.
Thank you. This is the penalty section of our city ordinances unless stated in a separate ordinance. The Iowa legislature made some change which allows the public defender's office to be reimbursed for costs of defendants to the cities who prosecute the defendant if there's a potential for jail time. Our city ordinance currently has the potential for a 30-day jail imprisonment if convicted of a city ordinance. So after some discussion with the city attorney, we created an ordinance that removed the possibility of jail terms in order to keep the city from getting pretty high costly legal fees billed back to them once a defendant goes through the court system if they are entitled to a public defender. This doesn't have any bearing on any of the state codes, just it affects the city codes only. We currently don't ask for jail time when we go to court with our city ordinances, but this will clean up the actual code sections so that there isn't the chance that we do get a bill back unnecessarily for any of our city ordinances.
Very good. You did a good job explaining that. When I talked to Mike about it earlier this week, I said, what's this about? And I have a better understanding of it. I can't explain it as well as
It's
you
been on the
can, but-
horizon, and now cities across the state are starting to get bills, and they're going, what is this for?
Yeah.
So that's how it got brought back to our
Right.
attention.
Brad, how often is somebody put in jail for something,
For city ordinance,
city ordinance?
we don't ever ask for jail time when we prosecute on city ordinances.
Does a prosecutor ever decide to do that way?
He's sitting right here. No, we don't. There's
I mean, there's some people that probably should be locked up longer than others, or should be if they're
a
repeat
city
offenders.
ordinance is only a simple misdemeanor, so it's equivalent to a traffic violation.
Okay,
And those are really not necessarily usually taken care of with the financial burden of the
Okay.
defendant on a conviction.
Yeah, we're typically talking speeding tickets, stoplight violations, stop sign violations, things of that nature. I don't ever recall in those situations ever recommending to the magistrate that that person receive jail time. We have had, I would say maybe an informal agreement with the magistrate court that we don't intend to ask for jail time. But now we're put in a little different situation, with the new code. And I think the Iowa Supreme Court is willing to encourage the appointment of defense counsel if there's even a possibility of jail time.
okay.
So we're eliminating as Chief said, we're just eliminating the possibility of jail time for city code ordinance violations.
So the fines in place remain?
It does, and I forgot to mention too that you brought this up. We amended the fine amount to match the state code amount. So that did change, from the minimum of $105 to a not to exceed of $855. And that just is matching the current city or the current state code as far as the fine amount.
Okay, so that is updated, what we have.
Correct, yep,
Thank you.
that matches the most current legislation.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Brad or Dave? Hearing none, I would seek a motion to approve, to change the ordinance in chapter 1.14.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Are you making a motion to waive the first, second, third, or approve the first reading?
Just the first reading.
Just the first
Yep.
reading? Okay. Just
Yeah,
wanted to
the first
clarify.
reading, clarify that,
Sure.
correct? Okay, yeah, so the first reading, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so we have a motion to that effect. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek? Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bordenaro?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, item number 7, we have the city manager search proposals. This is placed on our agenda as a follow-up to the special meeting we had last Wednesday. And Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark and council. The city did invite select search firms who conduct city manager searches in the state of Iowa to submit proposals for the search for the next Carroll city manager. Proposals were received from 4 firms, and copies of the proposals were included in the council packet for the council's review. The 4 firms included were GovHR USA. From start to appointment, it was a 14-week period. Their flat fee was $19,500 with an additional $4,000 of expenses, not to exceed $23,500. Second one was Hinson Consulting, 14 to 16 weeks, which is approximation of what was in their material. Their flat fee was $15,000 with $1,500 expenses, for a total of $16,500. Midwest Municipal Consulting, from start to appointment was 9 weeks with a flat fee of $9,200 with expenses not to exceed $1,500 for a total of $10,700. And Thiason Management Consulting was 18 weeks from start to appointment, and their fee was $15,000 with $2,500 expenses for a total of $17,500. Now, I would note that each of the firms are online and able to participate with any council discussion or questions that they may have this evening. And the recommendation from staff is for the mayor and council to review the proposals and consider approving a resolution selecting a search firm. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening. Thank you.
Thank you too, Mike. The first question I would ask the council is, are you satisfied in at least considering selection of one of these 4? Or do you, if you're not satisfied, do you want to reach out further? Or what are your wishes? Are you happy with one of these to consider? Is essentially what my question is. Do you think we can select one of these, or do you want to go further? Think we can select one of these? I'm seeing a few nods.
I have a question, but yeah, I can go for one of them.
Yeah, you want to go start off with questions then, Laverne?
Well, Midwest Municipal, theirs is 9 weeks, and everybody else is a lot longer than that. Can you explain why you're so much shorter than everybody else? And if you do have to go over 9 weeks, is your fee going to be reflected in that?
Good evening, Elizabeth Hanson, Midwest Municipal Consulting. I'm the founder and president of MMC. And to answer your question, I am dedicated to working with the city of Carroll. And again, there'll be variables only on the client side. So if it is a very aggressive, I looked at your council meetings, and assuming that the entire council would be the executive group that would review the phases of the project, then you know, again, that would be up to the council. If you want to bump it back, that's completely up to the city. I am dedicated to this timeline, and I'd be willing to easily work with you on that. To answer your questions, if it does get bumped back, it's not reflective of any additional charges.
Thank you.
So to clarify that, Elizabeth, I kind of had a question about it too, that essentially as long as the city, the client, in your case, remains on task and meeting certain deadlines, that is going to dictate on whether or not you can have an answer to us by this aggressive timeline. Is that correct?
Correct. For example, if you're unavailable on December 9th and 10th, we can obviously work with moving that back, or it wouldn't be able to be moved up, but it could easily be moved back. And again, that would be per the city's purview.
Okay. Well, in some of the conversations I've had with council members, there's kind of this bit of a dichotomy that, we want this over with yesterday, but then again, at the same time, we want to do our due diligence, and sometimes that takes time too. So many of us are new to this. We have 2 veteran council members that have been through this once before, and we tread with caution by moving too fast, but at the same time, facing the budget that's going to be right in the middle of this is probably our 600-pound gorilla. And, there's certainly some interest in moving this along as quickly as possible to unburden those that are going to be already, taking on some additional loads. So any other questions that you have for the consultants here? Ladies and gentlemen, anything? I failed to mention that all of them are, all but one are online? Or do we
They're
have-
all
They're all
online.
online,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you for being here, by the way. Are there any other questions for the consultant specifically, or questions for Mike, or questions for me?
I guess the only question I have is seeing the dollar amounts. I want to make sure that none of these, whichever one we choose, will not exceed that total dollar amount.
That's how their proposals are written.
Okay.
I don't know what your all thoughts were, but as you went through the proposals, I found that the scope of work, although it might have been communicated maybe slightly differently, but they all seemed to have an order to the process and kind of checked all of the boxes, that I felt were necessary. So they all kind of looked similarly, but, a little different in presentation and certainly price and timeline. Thoughts or comments? Welcome them all. Well, is there any intention to select one tonight? And if so, what would it be?
Well, Mark, if we're gonna throw it out there, Midwest, I'd like to stick to the 9-week timeline and do what we set out to do, is get Mike replaced as soon as possible.
Is there a motion to that effect?
One of the reasons, with Midwest also is she's been around this community. The others I don't know. So she has somewhat of a feel of the community. I don't know if that's that important or not, but that did stick out with me.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve Midwest.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the quote for the city manager search from Midwest Municipal Consulting in the amount of $10,700. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Seaman,
No.
Shrek,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Bordenaro.
Yes.
Resolution is approved, 5-1.
Thank you.
And I would just appreciate all the individuals that did submit proposals for it. We do appreciate that, so thank you for that work.
Yeah, I do as well. Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have item 7B related to this is possible appointment of an interim city manager. Is there a question?
Yes, I'd like to address the,
Please come forward.
Randy Top, 708 North Adams. One of the proposals mentioned that the meetings could entail council committees or groups. And I would like to have it available that at least a number of citizens, not necessarily engage in the process, but at least be part of and hear how it's happening. So, yeah, that'd be about it.
Duly noted. I believe in her scope of services, Randy, that the actual interviews, the discussions with the council to select the finalists will fall under closed session for obvious reasons. But, yeah, yep,
Just keep us in mind.
absolutely. And duly noted, and I'll keep you posted personally, and then I bet we'll probably have a meet and greet opportunity as well. So, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 7B, possible appointment of an interim city manager. This also comes in the heels of a discussion that we had, special session on last Wednesday. And Mike, I'll turn it back over to you once again.
Thank you, Mark and council. Obviously, with my resignation, the mayor and council needs to consider if they wish to appoint an interim city manager. Now, the council did discuss this on October 5th, and since that meeting, I did take the opportunity to discuss the appointing of an interim city manager with Mickey Shields of the Iowa League of Cities. Mickey does provide information to cities and acts as a resource for communities and councils on local government issues in Iowa. When asked how cities handle vacancies, Mickey did note that it is more common than not for a city manager, with cities that have a city manager, to appoint, for those communities to appoint a interim city manager when there's a vacancy such as what Carroll will face here. He did note that there are several functions that need to continue. Some of those are just being a point of contact for mayor, council members, the public as a whole, working with staff, dealing with staffing issues and HR issues, and other similar operational issues that an interim manager really needs to be there to help facilitate. He also noted that most cities tend to appoint a long-tenured department head, like a police chief, public works director, or a city clerk to fill these roles. Some cities have been successful in appointing an outside individual to fill the role that are either recently retired or in a transitional state. So generally, for an interim or outside interim to be appointed, the individual does need to be within an hour of a community so that they can fill that role. And at least at the time, Mickey could not think of anyone in Western Iowa that would be able to fill that position. So the recommendation tonight is for the mayor and council discussion, consider the appointment, approval and a resolution appointing an interim city manager. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council has this evening. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Following last Wednesday's meeting, which I thought was very good discussion, pros and cons and everything in between. I received a suggestion on a possible candidate to consider to fill the interim position. And I've reached out to all of you individually to gauge your interest in this and for your consideration tonight as an option to some of the things that didn't arise Wednesday night. And the person that has been recommended is Jeff Kaler. Jeff is no stranger to the city of Carroll. He fits, a description of someone who would likely be rather capable to do it. And I wanted to get your feedback on it before I spoke to Jeff. And then Laverne joined me in meeting with Jeff very briefly because I was only referred, and I wanted to hear it, that he was interested in it, if so. And I think the comment that he made that, you know, he still considers this to be his city too, and that he would be welcome and open to the possibility of it. So with that, do you mind if I put you on the spot? And if you want to approach the council, give us your thoughts on it, and then we will have certainly some questions for you. And then I would urge the council to consider that or any of the other options we might have available to us. Jeff, do you mind?
Sure.
And this is Jeff Kaler, City of Carroll, Amy Street, 1300 block.
I guess by way of introduction, for those of you that maybe have forgotten me in my 7.5 years of absence, I worked for the city for 34 years, the last 30 and a quarter as your police chief. I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree, and a fair amount of experience coming to council meetings for roughly 35 years now, 36 years, something like that. I don't really have a lot of concerns about taking the job, the things that we did discuss on Friday. Obviously, there are some fairly important milestones coming up in the way of city government, one being the budget, and a couple union negotiations, I believe, are coming up in the next few months. I have a great deal of experience with union negotiations. I've got some experience with budgets, but obviously would be relying heavily on the department heads who, most of them have been here for many, many years now, and most importantly with Laura, who basically is the one that makes it all happen. She puts it together. I have a great deal of flexibility. When I talked with the mayor and with Laverne on Friday, they talked about, you know, their expectations as far as the time involved, whether it would be full-time, part-time, or maybe a little of both. There'd be some weeks when it would probably be full-time without a doubt, and others where it might not need to be. And so I guess all of that being said, I'm certainly willing to do it if that's the council's desire. I think, you know, I've got a good understanding of what's going on in the city from attending these meetings and from speaking with different people in the city. I guess from a standpoint, you all saw my name on one of these proposals tonight too. One of the advantages of somebody like me assuming this position, even if it's not me, in addition to having a pretty good understanding of city government and specifically the city of Carroll's government, I also know the people in the community. I know the issues that are happening right now. Mike and I have a great relationship, and we've already talked about the idea of spending some time overlapping with him prior to his departure on the 3rd of November to find out what his third or first burner issues are, front burner issues are moving forward. So I guess with that, I would open it up to any questions that any of you might have. I know I've probably glossed over some things, but does anybody here have any questions of me or?
Jeff, you said you have flexibility. This is coming up, will be a very intense time, as you already recognize. Based on your statement about flexibility, do you have that flexibility to put in the hours it will take to work with and coordinate everything with the department heads and overseeing?
As luck would have it, my other job that I have many projects that will conclude later this month. The last one's on the 27th. The only other thing that I have coming up is in Iowa City in the first 2 weeks of December. I've got a couple days in each of those weeks where I'll have to be gone. Beyond that, I plan to put everything else. I don't have any other projects. And the ones that I had thought about doing, I'll just sideline those.
So are you anticipating a 40-hour work week then?
I'm sure there'll be some
as-
weeks when there definitely will be. But at the same time, if the city doesn't feel like I need to be here all the time, that's fine too, but certainly I can be here 40 hours a week if needed or more.
So Jeff, with this opening coming up, would you be putting in for the city manager job, or are you not interested as a conflict of interest or anything
I
like that?
have no inclination to apply for the job.
Okay. Okay.
I'm getting really good at being semi-retired.
I don't blame you.
Some say you've perfected it.
Yeah. No, I don't intend to apply for it, so I don't see any conflict there. And I guess, one of the things that I talked with the mayor and with Laverne about on Friday, I think one of the reasons that the one consulting firm had contacted me about being involved was my institutional knowledge of the city and of the city government, as well as the people, the issues, and things like that. I contacted him after I spoke with the mayor and Laverne on Friday, and basically said, there's a new wrinkle in this whole thing. The difference might be that I'll be happy to work with you, it'll just be on the other side of the table. But, the same things that conceivably I would have helped them with had they gotten this, I will now help Elizabeth with as she moves forward. And one of my specialties for the last 27 years now is recruitment of city officials. So that might be a side benefit of my appointment.
One other question, I don't know, did you throw around, in our resolution tonight, we are to include an amount for the appointees' compensation? How do we go about this?
Is that something that is done hourly or can be done hourly, since it's gonna vary from week to week, or?
Yeah, we bantered around this, and when we met for a grand total of about 40 minutes. And, we tried to stay on task, but that, I asked Jeff, I said, what you expect it to look like? And I can't imagine you expecting to do this strictly volunteer. And, he's gonna be kind of giving up a little bit of an income source. And so I said, it's got to be north of minimum wage and slightly below 144. So, how do you feel about that? And that's pretty much how I described it, Laverne. And, we kind of talked about it, and we didn't arrive on a firm number, other than Jeff had said that the range, the memo was out by Friday, and he said that the current salary range for the city manager is, call it 110, it's 109,813 to 144. And that's the current salary range for the city of Carroll. Is that pretty much the way, not globally or, within our region? So 110 to start, and then we don't know, we can't predict. He's not gonna start next week and put in 40 hours. We know that. But there's gonna be a time somewhere late December, early January, that perhaps he is. It's kind of dependent on the demands, Laura's saying, get this in, get this in, get this in. Am I describing this fair enough? And you can chime in too.
I guess to
But
answer the question.
we don't exactly know, is
Right.
what I'm trying to say.
What I told them on Friday and what I would be willing to do, I make $150 an hour on the jobs that I'm not gonna do. I don't expect you to pay me that unless you want to. I'd be happy to accept it, just because I'm agreeable that way. But I'm happy to accept whatever the hourly rate works out to at the bottom of that range. I recognize that I'm not a trained city manager. Obviously, I think I know enough about it that I can do the job that you're needing to be done. And I'm happy to do it on an hourly basis if it happens to be 20 hours one week because there's nothing going on. I don't need the money. Well, it's nice, but I'm not counting on it to survive. On the weeks when it does take a full-time commitment, I'm happy to do that too. So it's, like I say, it's kind of nice to be retired and have that flexibility. And when I first read the memo about the notion of hiring somebody, I thought, gosh, I'm here in town and I don't have to travel. I know the issues, the learning curve as far as the community and the issues is going to be a lot smaller than it would be for somebody coming in. But like I say, I'm not doing it for the money, but at the same time, it would be nice to get paid, so I'm happy to accept whatever that hourly rate is at the bottom of the range.
We did talk about, like an anticipated start date. We know that Mike's final day is November 4, and Mike brought this up as well as Jeff both did, almost simultaneously, but at different times, that both of them would like for the start to be prior to November 4th, so that there would be a little bit of synergy and ramp up and ramp down for both of these young men.
And Mike and I already had just a brief discussion before the meeting that we don't anticipate that being, 80 hours or anything like that. We're talking a couple days to find out what are the front burner issues, what are the timing of those issues, so that when he's done at the end of the 3rd, I think it is.
Yep.
We'll know where to start. It won't be a matter of looking around, trying to figure out what to do. We'll have a good idea what the front burner issues are and what we need to get started with right away. So.
Right.
One of the things we need to clarify when we talked about hours and stuff, I asked him if we don't have much going on and you're only working 10 hours this week or 20, whatever, what your charge, and it's an hourly rate. So he'll be fine with 10 or 20, whatever it is. And then the other question I asked is if it's over 40 hours, what are we doing? And Jeff says, well, then we go back to what the yearly salary is, so he won't charge us anything over 40 hours for that week.
Correct?
Within reason.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this will be, and I'm just asking a question just for the council's benefit. Would this be an employment relationship, or would this be through your consulting firm?
No, I would anticipate being an employment
Okay.
situation.
So if you work 44 hours, we got to pay you 44 hours. That's the
Even
law.
as an exempt employee, or?
Well, to be an exempt employee, you have to be working
Salary.
full-time salaried.
All right, okay.
So you're either salaried or you're hourly. You can't be both.
That's what I find confusing about I'm not questioning Jeff at all, his qualifications, just how this is worded, and the memo does say if a current department head would be selected to fill the interim, I would advise the high end of the range that is given in this. So this is premised on a department head, and then the wording in here is compensation of a total X dollar amount annually while serving as interim city manager. So,
I mean,
but we're good.
Yeah, the resolution was written kind of under the auspice of last Wednesday where we
Right.
were looking at
So
department heads.
I guess
So-
that's where I think we need some guidance on this, on compensation, when it's determined by whom.
Yeah. I mean, my suggestion would be if the council wants to head this direction, we'll start working with Jeff right away, but I would say let's come back in 2 weeks, because I'll still be here in 2 weeks. We can have a discussion and formalize exactly how this is all gonna lay out, and then bring a plan back to
Okay,
council.
yeah.
That would be my suggestion, because I know we have a lot of things also on the agenda yet this evening.
I think that would be a better process, yeah.
Yeah, when we talked so briefly Friday, quite frankly, we're on uncharted territory for us, and blame myself, but we don't exactly know what it'll look like. But I think if this is the direction that the council wishes to go and at least consider, then over the next 2 weeks, we can come to some type of agreement to present to you in a dollar amount and
Would it be
timeline.
too much to ask to actually have the vote about whether you're going to make the hire? Because I've got a proposal to either submit or not by the end of this week, by Friday, that is significant. And if this is gonna happen, for sure that I'm absolutely not gonna do that. But if 2 weeks from now, the winds change direction, I don't want to not have put in a proposal. Because I don't think we're gonna have any
it's-
trouble coming to an agreement on the
Yeah,
salary.
it's perfectly understandable. I mean, I certainly get it for one, you know, but I'm not quite sure what the resolution would exactly look like. I mean,
I got you.
I guess even by simple motion, you know, we say, well, you know, we're gonna, you know, bring Jeff on, but then, you know, if the dollar amount isn't agreeable to you or the council in 2 weeks, you know, would that not present a problem? I'm trying to find an answer for you.
No, I got you.
I am.
And like I say, I'm happy to work with you, however, it doesn't make any difference. I don't want to miss out on something
I get it.
if there's a
Yep,
big,
I so
if it's not a
do.
big question mark, it's not a big deal.
Well, and again, yeah, I haven't heard any negatives yet, is probably the good point. But I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to, you know, predict what a vote is going to turn out to look like either. I mean, I'll reach out to the council. I mean, if you're willing to, you know, dangle it out far enough, you know, I'll go along with you. But without having a firm dollar amount, unless we want to just iron it out here real quick and tell them what it's going to look like, then so be it. But, you know, Mike's recommendation was maybe to perhaps put it off. We've got other people in the room. that
So
have
real
other
quick, when I
business,
see
but-
the low end, we're looking at 110, just under 110,000, an hourly rate. By 2,080 hours, we're talking just under $53.
Yep.
So at $53 an hour, if it's 20 hours or 40 hours, we have a deal or don't have a deal.
You got a worst case scenario.
Yes. My only thing is, we talked about last time, we're putting more pressure on Laura, Brad, Randy, and then it's just a trickle-down effect. I mean, then you burn everybody else out underneath of it.
Well, anybody that knows me, anybody that's worked with me here knows that it's not gonna be a problem getting me to put in the hours.
And that's what I like, it's, you have rapport with everybody that's worked within the city, have a good idea of what's going on. And it's not something that you have to do as a citizen, something that you was kind of called out and offered or asked to do.
I think too, with Jeff's experience, negotiations are coming, his experience with the budget, I mean, that all is big and it stands out as important things that he already has
Yeah.
knowledge of.
Who filled in as interim city manager before Gerald was here?
I did.
You did, so you,
Sort of. They asked me to do it, and then, I don't remember exactly the wording, but essentially they said, we don't know if we wanna actually name somebody, so we're gonna name the city, or the mayor at the time, I think it was Tom Gronstall. He'll be the official acting city manager, and then I did the compensation plan that you guys are doing now, along with Jerry Stewart from, Lippavac and Associates, and all of the day-to-day things, I did them at the direction of the mayor. That was 1994 also.
yep.
Was that a switch from Mike Johnson to Gerald?
I believe so, yeah.
You know, the last time this happened is when Gerald left, and that was in August. And then you got hired in October, right?
Yep, I started in October
So then-
23rd.
You know, Laura, you did most of that then.
I worked with the mayor.
Yeah, well, but there was, you know, that's when the quiet time of the city is, and now we're just getting into the point where it's really rampant. We talked about having you doing this the last time, and I'm worried about a burnout. You know, you're gonna be turning a ton of hours, we're going into budget, and to add his load onto your load concerns me. I
Right.
know you're gonna be working more, and he's probably gonna be asking for you to help out, so, you know, we need to be prepared a little bit for some compensation if she has to do a lot of work too, but I just think you need help is what I'm trying to get at.
One thing that may help here too, with the quick turnaround that Elizabeth talked about at 9 weeks, assuming that that can actually happen with the Christmas and Thanksgiving and everything falling in there, I would guess the normal turnaround time is 30 to 60 days from hire to, you know, Mike, you're gonna be relatively quick as far as, you're about a month, I think, from your appointment. But normally, some contracts have a 60-day deal in them, so, but if she can actually get, that done in 9 weeks, and then get somebody here in 30 to 60 days, it kind of compresses that a little bit.
And I'll just opine, because I know at least one council member has suggested they want a 60-day in the next contract, so I see Elizabeth's online, so she can note that.
I'm agreeable to waiting if that, I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I just don't want you to miss anything either, so I mean, we know that it's gonna be close to $50 an hour, and then you'll just manage whether it's 20 or 40 or everything in between, or 10 or 45, I mean,
I think it's the right move to appoint Jeff or put Jeff in that spot. Otherwise, if he does take that, he may not be interested in this. Everybody else is getting pressure on top of them.
I think based on the calculation Kyle just did, I think we should, from the comments, I think we could move ahead with this tonight.
I think it'd be great.
I
you know, but
don't see what's gonna change by kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. and I kinda
Unless
wanna get-
Jeff wants to talk, you know, privately and,
I'm good.
I mean, about
And I'm really not doing it
compensation.
for the money, it's,
Really?
Well-
I'm teasing.
not really.
I'm
I say, I
teasing.
make 150 doing the other thing, so.
Yeah,
I'm not a
I-
math
I
major,
know
but
what
this
you're-
sounds like less.
I think, yeah, Kyle gave you a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a question out there.
Yes.
Approach, please. Name and address, please.
Name is Perry Edholm. I'm at 1127 North Adams Street. Don't have all the experience he has, but the interim city manager position would be something that I think I have the skill set to be able to perform. I have my MBA, bachelor's. I served in the Marine Corps for 14 years. Born in New York, raised in Arizona, joined the military in New York, stationed in California for 12 years. Family purposes brought me to Arcadia, Iowa, and then I moved here in 2020. The main skill set I have, I was a counterintelligence and human intelligence Marine in the Marine Corps, so we worked with a whole diverse range of people from different cultures and backgrounds. I know how to ask questions, I know how to learn, I know how to leverage my experts, network. Well-versed in going overseas and conducting meetings with foreign attaché officers, embassy personnel, other people, figuring out who's who and what their role is and how best to develop their role. And if Jeff doesn't want to do the job permanently, if I prove myself, I wouldn't mind at least applying for the permanent position. I know I'm young, but I am very hungry and eager to learn. I'm in a transitional period of employment currently, so
Okay.
I was brought here tonight for the Adams project. But
Yeah, if I hear you right, that Elizabeth Hanson would be your contact to put your name forward.
okay,
Because we're going to use her as a search firm. That's the action we took earlier. And we can get you the information. You can Google her, Midwest Consulting. But if you're looking at it as a permanent position, you know, that's what we're aiming to do in the previous conversation.
interim.
Okay, in terms of interim, I mean, the first question I would ask, Angus, is it Angus? Is that what your first name is? I'm sorry.
Perry,
Perry, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
like Perry the Platypus.
Yeah, you speak faster than an auctioneer, and I follow them. That's all right. Do you have any municipality experience and with budgeting municipalities? That's a key ingredient here.
Budgeting, yes, just from my MBA program that I did. Municipality, what do you mean by municipality? The different functions of
Yeah,
a
city, state,
and-
local, school board, you know, I mean, it's a little different than the private sector or personal sector.
Gotcha. Are they're headed by people, right? Leaders in the positions that have a scope.
Well,
area of
the
responsibility.
budgets are all, yeah, I mean, we have department heads that submit their individual budget, but what the city manager does is, you know, he knows like state code. Are you familiar with state code?
No, but I could learn it very quickly.
Okay.
Fast learner.
You know, I mean, if somebody has an interest in them, you know, we could consider it, but I think we've got a couple of real well qualified candidates already.
Okay.
So, but I mean, you're welcome to apply for the permanent position. Did I say that well enough? Anybody disagree or? Okay, but thank you.
I'll work for a very affordable cost.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
good, very good. Yeah, some of us do that too, so. So did I hear that there might be an interest in making a motion to do this and then set the hourly wage at an amount agreeable to council?
Yes.
I'm seeing some
I
nods.
think
Is there a
it
motion
seems we're
to?
ready.
So the motion would be, let me back up, to approve a revised resolution or,
So what I would suggest is in the resolve clauses, in the first and second one, it would just be Jeff Kaler being inserted in the blanks. And the last resolved would say, now therefore be further resolved by the city council of the city of Carroll, Iowa, that Jeff Kaler shall be compensated. And then this is where the change would occur. Now, if you follow the wage of $109,813.21, how we calculated would work out to $52.79.5 an hour while serving as interim city manager. So that would be one option for the council to consider.
okay.
So no other benefits, just straight wage.
Well, it would get normal city benefits that he'd otherwise be entitled to, if it's not a contractual agreement.
Okay.
Okay, so the approval of Jeff Kaler as the interim city manager at a rate not to exceed $52,795 per hour. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bordenaro,
Yes.
Schreck,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you all. Thank you too, Jeff.
Thank you.
See you Monday. I didn't tell you, I didn't tell you which Monday either, so.
You got 9 weeks. Let's
Yeah, yeah. Got that budget in yet?
No kidding.
Some things never change.
That's right. Okay, we are to item 7C, and Randy, this is the water well, number 19 rehab. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well 19 was originally constructed in 2017, and it started out with a production capacity of 300 gallons per minute. As of this year, that capacity had reduced to about 100 gallons per minute. As a result of that decline, we employed a hydrogeologic firm to perform a complete well profile, which they did, and they made some recommendations for the rehabilitation of that well. The recommendations were extensive, much more than we normally perform on our well rotations. But we did use those to solicit proposals from 3 well contractors, did receive 2. They qualified, of course, they qualified their proposal that if there were any pump repairs necessary, that would be in addition to this dollar amount in the proposal. Pump repairs cannot be determined until the pump is pulled and taken apart and then decided what needs to be replaced. Lane Christensen submitted the low proposal at $44,685. Current budget includes $30,000 for well rehab. That $30,000 has been committed to the rehab of 2 other wells, or the repair of 2 other wells in the system. So there really isn't any funding in that item for this well number 19. So approval of it may result, depending on expenditures through the water system this fiscal year, may result in a necessity to amend the budget to include this repair. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of accepting the Lane Christensen proposal for well 19 rehab.
Randy, how long do these I mean, this was put in 2017, you said, the pump. How long do they usually last?
We normally rehab our wells on a rotating basis about every 7 or 8 years.
Who put this well in originally?
Sergeant Drilling.
That wouldn't have anything to do why they didn't respond to the bid?
No, Sergeant had indicated on a previous proposal that they were not taking on any more work this year. So we sent it to them. We didn't expect them to respond, and they didn't.
Okay.
We had spoken with them on another issue earlier in the year.
And this is just pretty much unanticipated at this time, and so it's kind of a surprise to you too.
It is. The reduction in that pumping capacity was kind of alarming to us. We want this well to produce. It should have been producing based on the design criteria. And we have never employed this hydrogeologist to analyze any well in town. And so it was an extra step we took, hoping that their recommendations will rehab this well to the point where it'll resume its hopefully design capacity.
This is one of the two new ones out west.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Have we used these people in the past, this company?
Lane?
Yep.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does funding from this come out of the enterprise, the utility enterprise? And we've got a pretty healthy reserve there, don't we? Well, it needs to be fixed. I mean, it needs to be producing. I mean, rainwater hasn't been overly plentiful this year. I mean, what's the council's wishes here? I mean, I, for one, would certainly support to move ahead with it, and then we'll just amend the budget if necessary. The other two are already planned to be done, so that they're spent.
Right. Some of the work is complete and some is underway.
Okay.
On the other two.
Yeah, it's water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Council's wishes? Any other questions for Randy?
How does it impact the water flow? What is it slowing down, or what are you worried about the extra 200 gallons per minute?
Well, that's, we want the wells to be at their maximum capacity. And this one, it was alarming that it was reduced by 200 gallons per minute. And practically pumping a well of this nature at 100 gallons per minute probably isn't economically feasible. I mean, it takes probably more power to pump that than it should. So we really want them all operating at peak capacity. Like the mayor said, we haven't been blessed with a lot of rain, so we don't know. So far, the city's aquifer is in good shape, but we don't know what the near future holds, or even the longer future. Typically going into this time of year, we're not going to get much recharge of aquifer here until possibly spring.
I just didn't know if it wasn't filling the water tower up fast enough, or...
Well, yeah, it contributes to that. There's 9 wells working. Right now, they're not all working, but we're rehabbing them, trying to get them all to optimum performance.
Good questions. So back to the council, is there any other questions for Randy? If not, do you want to consider the resolution or consider passage of the resolution or not? Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution accepting the proposal of Lane Christensen Company for well number 19 rehabilitation in the amount of $44,685. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bordenero?
Yes.
Schreck?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you. Thanks, Randy. Randy, stick around. We're going to need you here in a moment, but we have 8. Item 8A is Adam Street reconstruction. I think most of you are here tonight to talk about that. And if you would be so kind and forgive us, I've been requested to maybe take a 5-minute recess and take a quick break, and then we'll rejoin 5 minutes. Fair? Fair? Okay, 5 minutes. Thank you. We promised 5 minutes, and we kept it at 5 minutes. So the council is now back in session, and we are to the item at hand, which is item 8A, Adam Street reconstruction, and report on the public information meetings. Turn it back over to you, Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Public information meetings on the Adam Street reconstruction were held on September 26th and 28th. The meetings were, of course, publicized. Actually, notification was sent directly to 66 property owners adjacent to the project. And at the meetings, approximately 28 properties were represented. Included in the letters of invitation were an information and response form that kind of dealt with some of the privately owned facilities, including the sanitary sewer service, water service, sidewalks and driveways. Those information and response were requested to be returned to the city if they desired. We did receive 3, and they are summarized in your packet. At the public information meetings, we presented some information to the property owners, tried to answer their questions, and listened to their feedback. One of the primary concerns that we heard was related to replacement of the private facilities. Certainly, you know that currently city code makes that the responsibility of the property owner. But the concern was our estimate of cost for those impacted facilities. We've initiated work on trying to determine the cost for those facilities, but there's a few pieces of information that we would like to solicit in order to arrive at a reasonably accurate estimated cost. You know, we're not contractors, but we'll estimate the cost as best we can for the property owners. But those items that we really would like clarification on all surround or revolve around those private utilities or privately owned facilities. First of all, on the sanitary sewer, most sanitary sewer service line from the main line in the middle of the street to the property. Okay, most of the discussion so far has been replacement of that line from that main line to the property line, to the edge of the street right-of-way. In all cases, that's approximately 40 feet. Now, the reason for replacement of that, or the recommendation for replacement of that, is future protection of the new street paving. And in order to do that, an alternate consideration may be just to replace that from the main line in the middle of the street to the edge of pavement, or about 20 feet approximately. So get it out from under the street, protect that street. If anything happens to the service line beyond that point in the future, the right-of-way will be dug up. At least the street wouldn't be damaged, dug up. So that's a consideration that you can make. A second, on the water service lines, there's been, I guess, discussion all directions. Some of it revolved on the one hand for replacement of all of the service lines, and on the other hand, maybe none of them. But a consideration that we're throwing out tonight is to require replacement of those service lines that would be defined as lead service lines by the EPA. That's coming. It's not here today, but that is a mandate of the EPA that will be coming in future years. And we'd also recommend that the galvanized lines be replaced. A completely galvanized service line is pretty rare in Carroll, but if it is on the Adams Street, we believe it should be replaced. Galvanized water lines have a life expectancy that's more limited than some of the alternate materials. Driveways, some of the earlier discussion had included complete replacement of driveways from the street curb to the property line. Now, as far as paving is concerned, if there are no other issues in the driveway, actually only the bottom 5 feet or so has to be removed and replaced. That's customarily done when we build curb or when we put in water mains. We limit the removal and replacement of the driveway. Now, there are a few driveways on Adams Street because of the terrain that on removal, the replacement would not comply with current design standards. And bottom line on that is there's the opportunity for cars to drag when they go in and out of the driveway based on some of the terrain out there. Those we would recommend be completely replaced. But, not necessarily all the complete, every driveway on the project is not really necessary. It's nice, but it's not necessary. The fourth item that's generally considered or is actually considered private responsibility would be sidewalks. And throughout the discussion, there's pretty much been, that has pretty much included the city replacing the pedestrian curb ramps and then that associated taper to build the ramps. Another part of the sidewalk is the linear sidewalk adjacent or in front of each property. Now, there's been some discussion about replacement of all sidewalk paving, which is also nice. But the alternative may be inspection of the sidewalk and requiring replacement of any deficient sidewalks. Those would be ones with measured faulting or cracking or cross slope that doesn't comply with current requirements. But that would require inspection of every sidewalk, identification of those panels that need to be replaced. And then thirdly, under sidewalks would be carriage walks. That's a sidewalk that, the term we use for a sidewalk from the linear public sidewalk to the street curb, often used when cars are parked on the street to access the property. Some property owners we've found in the past would prefer those to be gone. And we've done several water main projects where the property owner said, just take it out and leave it out. Some property owners want them replaced, and those we have replaced when cut through with a water main project. So those are some, some alternate considerations for, I think, meeting, the goal of the city, which is protection of the pavement from damage or digging into in the future, in the near future, as much as we can. I would go back to, I guess I skipped over a sanitary sewer service issue. Also, along with replacing maybe 20 feet instead of 40 feet, we would want to take into consideration the material that the sewer is constructed of. If the sewer has been more recently replaced with a PVC pipe or a cast iron pipe with a ceramic lining or a clay pipe with sealed joints and no evidence of root intrusion, then that sewer is reasonably acceptable. It should be adequate support under the pavement. So those reviewing each sewer under those conditions, you could consider not replacing it if it had been more recently replaced. So unless there are any questions, I guess we're kind of looking for direction.
That one you just talked about, is that from the sewer line to the 20 feet mark that you, okay.
Yes.
And of those 66 homes, how many of them have that?
Have what?
The
Sewer line?
ceramic epoxy lining, iron pipe, polyvinyl chloride pipe, how many are you talking about up here?
Do not know that number.
But we just put cameras down all of them, right?
Yeah, we have the information, I just don't have it in mind.
Randy, they're talking the lead pipe, EPA. That's dictated on the city, that's not dictated on the homeowner.
The replacement,
Yes.
they have to be replaced. Now, different cities will do it differently. That may be another decision of the council. Currently, that would be the responsibility of the property owner to pay for. So,
Mike, did you have, after Randy was done, you wanted to
Yeah, I
add
was
a few things?
just going to add, I think Randy really laid out very well the direction of what information we need from council so that we can develop the final cost for this project. And I just wanted to just kind of explain, I know we work with the media sometimes way ahead of the council agenda going out. And so I had thought we'd be a little bit further along with cost. And I know on the radio I announced that we'd have costs tonight. Well, we don't, because we need some of these answers before we can have those final costs. So we're working on it. Once we get these kind of direction items from council, Randy and McClure can then work on getting council those estimated costs that we believe each property would be looking at. Or maybe not even, that's worded poorly, just what the implications are on a property by property basis on these costs for services, sidewalks, and driveways.
So just looking at it, there's a lot that goes into this in a bunch of different sections. One of the things I did before council meeting was I walked from here all the way up to Adams Street and back. Are there some areas that need attention versus others? Yeah, but I feel, yeah, on the sidewalk. I feel as a city telling somebody, hey, you need to replace your sidewalk, or making everybody replace their sidewalk, I truly don't feel that's right. Some of them are good. I mean, there's some panels that are worse than others. And quite frankly, on a couple properties that I own, I walked on the sidewalk and they're similar to this or in worse shape. So.
And I know the council this has been an area that the council struggled with historically on how do we handle these sidewalks. And maybe I'm going to put Dave on the spot here. I didn't give him a heads up, but maybe you want to talk a little bit about what the implications are if the city doesn't have a proactive sidewalk inspection program and what liability we're taking on at that point, and maybe what the liability is today if we do have such an inspection program, because the council has previously kind of said Adams Street was going to be the start of our inspection program. And so I'll let Dave maybe talk and educate the council on that.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can educate anyone here on that, but basically it is the responsibility of the property owner to maintain and repair and/or replace your sidewalk. I think Mike's alluding to the fact, well, what if the city just doesn't have any sort of review of its sidewalks around the city, or some type of management or process that we can identify defective sidewalks? Does the city then bear some of the potential liability that might be out there from somebody tripping or falling or what have you on these sidewalks? So yeah, I do think it is important on the city end of things to make sure we monitor our sidewalks. The unique thing about that is it does remain the responsibility of the property owner to handle what needs to be handled as far as the sidewalk's concerned. So there is potential dual liability, but the primary liability would be the property owner. But there is some potential for city liability.
Okay. Randy, through all the meetings that we've had, I'll get to you in a minute here, Randy. Of all the discussions we've had up to this point, and I know that a couple of the council members share the same, I just want clarity that it's the council, the current code is that replacement of sewer and water is from the main, our responsibility is just to the main only, correct? And that's because it's in the middle of the street and because we don't want anybody interrupting that new street, then we are under consideration to extend the water to the stop box and the sewer to, I thought before it was to the right of way, but now you're saying to the curb, and is there a difference always?
There is a difference. The discussion to date had been to the right of way. That's good, but just throwing out in the alternative, you'll have pavement protection if you go to the back curb or 20 feet.
At least to the curb,
Yeah.
right? Okay, but the council could choose to go to the right of way, which may be just on the other side of the sidewalk, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
That would, it's a trade-off. If you go to the back of curb or 20 feet or whatever it may be, then if the property owner has to replace a sewer at any time in the future from that point toward the house, he'll have to dig around possibly a water main if it's on that side of the street, and then through the sidewalk, which would have to be taken up and replaced. So you're trading off a current maybe savings versus what it may cost down the road. And likely it's going to cost more down the road, but that's, that's just kind of a trade-off for those things.
Thank you. That clarifies it for me. What I'm hoping to get accomplished tonight with the council is that we give answers to Randy definitively on each of these essentially 4 items. And what I envision, after having whatever discussion you see fit, is just take them one by one, starting with sanitary sewer, then we do the water mains, we come to an agreement on what, that the city will take on. Because again, the current code and responsibility is just to that main. So what the council has at hand is what, they're willing to do on behalf of the Adams Street property owners and what could potentially happen on the next project and the next. Did I paraphrase that fairly well for everybody? So, we'll enter into discussion. But Randy, you did have a question. I'll get to you here. Go ahead, and then we're going to continue our discussion. You have a question?
I have something to say, yeah.
You want to approach, please?
Randy Toff, 708 North Adams. On 328, there was earmarked funds, 350,000 lost funds from Adams Street to other streets. On 314, I asked city manager if the city ever paid for water main hookups, stops. The answer was never. I asked back, never. Again, the answer was never. 3 days later, I get an email that says the city has been paying, despite city code. March 22nd, the local paper, page 1, quote, "As it stands, special assessments are not included in the budgeting as the city plans to embark on an Adams Street restoration estimated to cost $3.2 million for the roadway itself and possibly $1 million more for utility work." Additional quote, the same article, had the project moved forward in 2022, there would have been no special assessments as they were not factored into the financing in the city budget. 411, Councilman Dirks asked the city manager if the council went ahead with the rec center project, would there still be money to pay for Adams Street? The answer was a quick and resounding yes, followed by a list of multiple funding avenues to use. 5-9, city council approves 8 cents per foot of lot hookup to sewer on the 2022 project. That price is a fraction of the estimate thrown around for Adams Street. Using that 8-cent formula, hookup to my lot would be $823.68, considerably less than the thousands being bantered around. Additionally, I'm sick and tired of hearing economy by volume, so the contractor should do the work and charge back property owners. On Crawford Street, water main, which the city paid for the main, all hookups to new stops and replaced all torn up driveways. Additionally, the city paid for railroad easement totaling an enormous amount of money. The contract specified replacing water service lines at an amount per linear foot. The city forgot one address on the project. A local licensed plumber came in, did the work, and the line cost 50% of what the contract would have allowed. 1/2. So forget the economy story. May 2021, the city manager was on the local radio station saying the city was going to inspect all sidewalks immediately on Adams so property owners could fix or replace their walks before cold weather in late 21. It's now 17 months later, now we're at cold weather again, and concrete is 32% higher than a year ago, still no inspections. The city also paid for new sewer and water lines on Adams Street, 5th to 6th Street during a streetscape project. The argument is it was different funding. I call precedent. The city secured funding at no property owner costs. Also, we are told we need to fund work on our sidewalks. On South Main, the city paid for 4 properties to get sidewalks during a trail project. You pay for Joe, Sally, Bill, and Mary's walks, but we aren't good enough to receive the same consideration. $1 million a year for streetscape for 10 years, still going. $5 million for a garage with a hotel in it. $7 million for a rec remodel. Now there's enough blocks sitting outside to build a basement for a 3-bedroom house. And now you consider coming after us for infrastructure that you are tearing out. I'm pretty sure the purpose of government is to take care of things we can't handle. Just pay for all the things other citizens are getting. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Okay, so it takes us back to the matter of hand to give Randy some direction on what the council wishes for the city to encompass in the project. Are there any questions for Randy, or should we start with sanitary sewer?
Let's start at the top and work our way down.
Yep, sanitary sewer. Once again, just reading the memo, replacement of all sanitary sewer lines under the pavement, approximately 20 feet in length, unless it is verified that the service line has been replaced with polyvinyl chloride pipe, ductile iron pipe with ceramic epoxy lining, or vitrified clay pipe with sealed joints and no visible root intrusion, as Randy stated. And you said you have cameraed those and property owners can be alerted if necessary. But what we're talking about tonight, I think, is what the council's direction is as far as what the city will pick up in this project. Any thoughts?
I'm okay with going to the 20 feet. I really don't want to go to the 40 feet. I don't want to tear up sidewalks if they don't have to be tore up.
I concur.
Yeah.
I would like to not touch anything under the road, as far as replacing it all, so nobody has a chance.
Do it all right the first
Do it all right
time.
the first time.
Get it out.
This is a beginning restoration project, so we're starting from ground zero. So why would we even take the chance of busting it up in the future? And even looking at your 4, and I passed over here, but the last one, the clay pipe, would that be the?
Orangeburg, is that what you're saying?
No. Would that, the one that you would leave? I gotta find it here. Hang on one second. So you started off with replaced with polyvinyl chloride pipe. Would that be the strongest?
That would be the current.
Okay.
Yeah, most
So then
current.
ductile iron pipe with ceramic epoxy liner, or vitrified clay pipe with sealed joints and no visible root intrusion. Would you say the last one would be the one that would be the smoking gun if something was gonna fail? As good as the other two?
Current vitrified clay pipe, sewer service pipe,
Yeah.
has a good joint on it, probably more impermeable to root intrusion than older vitrified clay pipe. Now, there can be, and probably is, some clay pipe on this project that has some minor root intrusion through the joints.
That's underneath, that would be underneath the street if we leave
Underneath
it.
the street. Now, those pipes, while they may look sound, on the televising, the root intrusion has started on them if they do exhibit some roots in them from the televising. And those are the ones that this recommendation would include in replacement. If there's a clean clay pipe with no root intrusion in it, then this recommendation wouldn't include replacement of that. If no root intrusion, we would reasonably make the assumption that that pipe has a well-sealed joint on it.
And Randy, when you say that, you're saying from the main 20 feet out, okay.
Yes.
So do we tell the homeowners if from that 20 feet to their home, or can we identify that if they're gonna have trouble, do we have to run cameras up to that? Or, you know, to give them the option that they can do this on their own at that time, or?
We have provided the homeowners all of the televising information that the city had acquired. So they know, to the extent the city knows, what their sewer service lines are, what they're made of, and what root intrusion there is in them. Anything that was televised and noted, that information has been provided to the homeowners.
So they can make up their mind at this point if they want to continue to their home or take a chance down the road.
Yes. Mhm. And there are, to qualify everything, of course, there are some sewer lines out there that couldn't be televised. And there are some out there that weren't televised. Now, those, we would initially assume that those are in need of replacement for that 20 feet.
And the homeowner's aware of this, right?
They're aware of the information that we have on their sewer lines. If it's no information, if the city didn't have any information, it's indicated to them that there's no information. So it's an unknown.
Is that because the camera couldn't get through?
Some the camera couldn't get through. Some of the lines came in from side streets. There were various reasons, but there are a few that fall into that category, as well as a few unknown water lines. When I don't want to mix things up, but there's some unknown water lines because those are not televised. You know, those all the city could do was strictly go off of the record that we have, plus our guys went out into a few basements to try to verify what was coming into the house in those areas we had no information. So there's not absolute complete information of underground facilities. I mean, that there just isn't. And we do the best we can to get the information that we have at this point.
Okay, very good. Okay, so once again, what we have at hand here is consideration about, under city code, what we're willing to do on this project over and above city code, correct?
So do you want this in different motions?
Well, I was just kind of thinking about that. I mean, I heard a couple of you say that they're pretty good with it. Is everybody pretty good with that? If not, we've tried for one full motion.
I'd rather break it out.
You would?
Yep.
Well, then let's do that. Let's, he's seeking a resolution, well, no, direction from this. So let's just go ahead and do just that. So let's go ahead, and as someone make a motion to do as was suggested, is to go to the curb from the main on the sewer line.
Yep.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to do the sewer line from the main to the curb, getting into the property owner where the city takes care of it, giving the property owner an option for a special assessment if they want to replace their own sewer line.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second to that effect. I don't know if I can as eloquently say it as you did, but I think we got it. But is there any further discussion? There is a question. Sure.
So if we're gonna hook onto a new line, it needs to be past the curb, because when a plumber comes in there and starts digging.
That's what we're saying.
It's gonna be falling out from under the street again.
That's what we're saying, getting out past the curb far enough to where it's not gonna disrupt the street. Far enough where it's not gonna disrupt the street itself.
I mean, however deep it is, it has to be out that far at least. Is my suggestion, as to digging.
Yeah.
The digging rules.
Yeah, I would say our main concern is we're not tearing up the street again.
I just don't want the base to be mad, you know.
We're all in the same.
Randy, hang on a second. On Northwest and 10th,
Yes.
there was a line just last week that broke, a sewer line. And they had to go bust up the cement because it was Orangeburg, you know, so I went there, I saw it and I stopped and I asked that particular question, what you're saying is how far will this go? And it seemed like it was like 3 feet from the curb. And I said, if this has to be replaced, are we gonna have any problems? And he said, no. So there.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got an answer on sewer lines. To your satisfaction? Perfect.
Do you want to have a motion?
I'm sorry.
We have to do
Yeah,
that.
I was in the middle of that, so, sorry. Thanks for the reminder. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ordinary.
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Schreck. Yes. Base.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Now you got direction. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one would be the water service lines. And once again, replacement of all lines that are included in the definition of lead service lines and all galvanized lines, both from the water main to the stop box. And what is the council's wishes on that?
Yeah, I would say replace the same underneath the road, you get it out to the stop box like it has been done in the past. Giving the homeowner the option in the stop box to their house, if they want a special assessment or replacement, that's an option for them.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
So the thing that homeowners need to know is if the APA comes forward, they may have to replace that down the road, so they can make a decision now if they want to do that now or later.
Randy?
Does that include the service line that's on the same side of the street?
I think we treat both sides the same.
Okay,
To the stop box.
just
both sides.
clarification.
One side will be more money, but
And that's city cost?
that is city cost.
So is that the motion? Was there a second?
I'll make a motion for that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to that effect for water service lines. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Question? Come forward, please.
Rebecca Fiskus, 820 North Adams. I live on the east side of the street, and the water main runs parallel with the sidewalk on my side of the property. My question is, it's moving a little bit closer to the curb, from my understanding, the original water main to the new one that is proposed. And so my question is that you want to, you guys are proposing taking the cost from the stop valve through underneath the road and stuff. Are you guys also going to take the cost and bear the cost for that digging of that property, of that grass, including whatever is underneath our driveway to get that new water main
Into your house, is that what you're asking?
into the house?
The
Not into the house, sorry, the actual full-length water main that is running parallel to the street.
So yeah, that'd be,
Yeah, they were gonna do that anyway.
We would,
Yeah.
that was gonna be a
Yes,
city.
but are you going to cover the cost of the damage to the driveways along with that too?
We haven't gotten to driveways yet, but we're coming up with that.
Okay,
But, I think what we're gonna talk about, and I'll just give you a precursor to it, is what we're considering and doing in terms of the access or the approach to the driveway. I don't want to infer we're gonna be replacing
no,
all
I'm
the
not asking
driveways,
that.
but.
It's just, if you're going to have to tear up any portion of, you know, the curtain into the the apron into the driveway or whatever, you know, are you going to bear the cost of that too? Because that's the water main line that you guys are wanting to install, not directly into my house.
That's coming up next in item C.
Okay, thank you.
You're fine.
That is a good question.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to get caught this time. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Could I ask another
Of
question?
course.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to clarify things.
You?
These water lines, are these just the lead service lines and galvanized?
No.
Or is it everything?
I think you replace everything. When you're doing the water main, you replace the whole thing.
Okay, well, there's some plastic out there that's been replaced in the last few years. So,
Does it fall under the same categories you're talking about with the sewer pipes and everything else?
yeah,
Replaced, or is this something?
well, that's my question.
So how, I guess looking at cost, when I piece something together, I'm gonna take new to some old stuff versus just running one straight main line and tying in from there.
You're just trying to clarify. So if there's a plastic or a copper line there, replace it also? Just a question.
I'm glad you raised the question.
Yeah.
It is, because we talked about lead and galvanized lines.
Now copper.
But Kyle's under the belief we replaced everything.
If that's the motion.
And it's his motion.
I'm gonna pick on the plumber, Kent, in the room, put you kind of on the spotlight.
Thanks, Kyle.
I mean, if you're doing this for a customer,
I understand what Randy's saying. I think, like you just said, Randy, with plastic, if something's been plastic in the recent, whatever, 25, 30 years that they've been using PE, that I guess I don't know if that's a terrible thing to leave. It's plastic. In theory, it ain't going anywhere. But I understand your point, Kyle, that, and Randy, obviously you have to make a new tap at every main, so you're gonna have to make a new connection there anyways. So that's one thing. You don't, if you have to cut it off, you're saying that the main is moving one way or the other slightly.
Slightly.
So if you have to have a short stub of a foot and then a coupling, that's not good either. Obviously, that's a joint, that's another joint. So, I don't know, I guess I'm agreeing with plastic, yes, but to add a joint 2 foot over just because you got it extended isn't good either. So, copper, yes, I would say leaves because we take out copper lines, but, plastic obviously is the new thing and I think but yet adding coupling, so I guess that didn't really help with much, but that was.
Kind of depends on what side of the street.
Yeah. Probably the side of the street, and, because the other thing you got to remember is, if we're only gonna go to the stop box and you have this whole plastic pipe, I mean, what are you gonna leave beyond there? I mean, I think what I would suggest is let Randy, at this point, make kind of that determination, recommendation back to the council.
Okay. Yep.
Everybody good? Still in discussion phase? No more questions, comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Base?
Yes.
Schreck?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Ordinance?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
You good with that, Randy?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, the next one would be driveways. And I like using the word approaches, only because I think driveway is just nomenclature, but I just don't envision this 40-foot, 3-foot wide driveway. But what we're responsible for, or what we're planning for, is the first 5 feet of the approach into the driveway. Is that correct?
5 feet plus or minus,
Okay.
yes.
Mark, you skipped over sidewalks.
No, I didn't.
Oh, sidewalks D.
Not in mine.
Mine's C.
Yeah.
We got
Okay.
driveways to see.
I got driveways as a C.
Driveways.
How about I get to sidewalks?
Whichever.
This is my meeting, darn it.
It's your world, we're
I'm
living
teasing
in
you.
it.
You're paying attention, Tom. I'm proud of you there.
I'm with him.
Yeah, there, yeah, Misty
like, wait a
nudged
minute.
him, said he's wrong. Anyways, a little levity. So driveways,
Well, yeah,
approaches. City consider removal and replacement of the 5 feet required for paving or water main construction. Inclusion in private facility estimated cost of driveways that require reconstruction or to meet current design standards. Now, you said current design standards would be nice. but not necessarily required, but as long as we're in there, we
No.
just do them. But would that be an imposition on the property owner to their driveway?
Actually, the scenario that would include extensive driveway replacement is where, once the driveway approach is taken out, putting it back in would not meet current design standards. Okay, and those design standards deal with the difference in grade between the cross slope of the street and the profile grade of the driveway. You know, a flat driveway coming off a curb, take out 5 feet for the paver tread and put back 5 feet, or a little over 5 feet to build a water main and then put it back. But in a few of those instances on Adams Street, because the driveways are so steep, they replacing it after taking it out may result in a car bottoming out, trying to get off the street and onto the driveway.
But isn't it doing that now?
I don't know as there are any doing that now. I don't think
Anybody have a
we've noticed
bottoming out
any marks
situation?
on the street yet. And the street basically will be put back primarily where it is. Exactly where it is may not be feasible. Very, very little variation in the profile grade currently in the design plan. But I wanted to try to cover that situation somehow. You know, if it's not to be covered, we won't even worry about it. If you want to cover it, this is an alternative.
Okay. What are the thoughts of the council?
Randy, how many of those driveways do you think, I mean, just off the top of your head?
There are a
There aren't-
few.
I was gonna say,
There's-
I can only think of one.
There may be a couple, you know, just a very small number. It's not predominant throughout.
I'll put in my 2 cents. I think we leave it the way it is here at 5 feet plus or minus a little bit of just the approach. If somebody's car is dragging on their driveway, that's them, I feel like, and they're gonna replace that themselves. So,
If we're getting back as close to ground zero, it really shouldn't be an issue, right?
I
The
hope-
same elevation as the street is now, going back to the same elevation, it really shouldn't be.
It's
that big of a
going
deal.
back close. We can't hit those target elevations in all locations. But, you know, certainly there's no intent to change the grade on the street. But if it happens that it's right where that driveway is, then it's, that's why I bring it up.
Let's say I have a driveway that wants replaced. Is this the time that I ask the same construction people to do my driveway?
Sure, that can be done. There were quite a few driveways replaced this year just in our street patching project. Now, that's entirely up to the successful contractor if they want to take on additional work or not. Some do and some don't.
and this is something where a special assessment could be an option for homeowners?
Yeah, if that, it can be if that decision is made to do it before the plans are completed.
Right.
You know, those are, in order to get any special assessment underway, those decisions have to be made, you know, now. They can't be made during construction or after the contract's
Yeah.
let.
Yeah,
Or we
before
would
the
not-
bid is let, the way I understood it the other night. And that includes the water mains and sewer to the house. If the property owner wants to do that.
They have to decide.
They have to decide before the bid is let.
Yep, okay.
In all,
Bid's gonna be let late December? Is that what you thought?
we're going to try to get it as soon as practical, but it'll probably be after the first of the year.
Okay.
Actually, we probably would not even offer going to the house on any sewer, any water, any driveway. That would be off-street right-of-way. And then that entails easements to do that work. And it's just compounding the complexity of the project. Offering anything to the right-of-way is a reasonable issue. If the property owner wants to go farther, they could deal directly with the contractor or their plumber. That's either one.
Okay, that does bring up a question that I think we had, is say property owner A wants to do that, property owner B does not want to do that. That doesn't implicate anything on our side of it whatsoever, but are you saying that we're unable to offer special assessments for people that optionally want to do it before the bid is let?
I would say offer the special assessment for anything within the street right-of-way. When you get beyond the street right-of-way onto private property, every step, every encroachment needs an easement to be written for it. And you're complicating this project.
An easement, not an assessment. Okay.
Yeah. It's complicating the project unbelievably to try to get easements to do that. And the easements described to do that.
Right. Okay. Here's a question, Ryan. Please.
Ryan Gallegos, 827 North Adams. I just want clarification of this, because here we are again with all this seemingly jacked up information. We don't have right numbers. We say we have 66 homeowners. We don't know what lines are what. You said that earlier. Then you came back and said we don't even know what some of them are. So it seems like it's, see, not here. It seems like a lot of misinformation, a lot of unknowns. Now you've been talking special assessments. We've all talked, property owners are going to be able to choose whether or not they're going to replace their lines inside of this per special assessment. But now it's off the table again. So, like, we're rushing into this thing. Why? Like, does that kind of making sense to everybody? Like, it's not making sense. I mean, you guys are talking. The people I've talked to have said you're gonna be able to do it under the special assessment. You can make a choice to take it all the way up to your house. And now he's saying it's not an option.
Randy,
so it's really confusing.
Is a driveway different than your sewer water line, what you have to have for a permit, or?
But he just said sewer and water lines. He just said sewer and water. He changed out the driveways and went back to sewer and water.
As far as working on private property,
Yeah.
it would be the same. Any work would require a easement to work on private property.
And what does that take to get?
It takes consent of the property owner, first a description of the easement, and then consent of the property owner to do it.
So nothing that's very costly.
No, in time, more than anything, to get those. That's probably what would introduce a delay into the project.
So let's talk about this then. So what we're talking about and have approved so far is we've approved the city to pay for to the edge of the curb. And after that point, it's on the homeowner. And as a homeowner, they can use special assessment to take it to their house or not? Because I'm a little confused now. So
As am
let me
I.
understand this, because I thought that was the whole premise of this, was voting on what the city's gonna pay for, and then where it goes from after that, it's up to the homeowners.
I gotta admit,
So if I'm following this conversation, it's saying, well, if we do that, then no, it's not. So,
Well, it's certainly easier to do the work and special assessments within the right of way. That's always easiest because it's city property.
right.
As Randy's indicating, I mean, you would have to get an easement plat, and, I mean, the clerk does that kind of work. And then there would have to be a construction easement to allow the contractor to get on there. But of course, if a property owner is voluntarily saying, yes, I want the assessment, and I want this replaced at my cost. I mean, they're stepping up at that point and voluntarily saying that.
From the curb to their house?
Yep.
Okay.
Obviously, at that point, they're also under the auspice that you gotta provide us
Right.
the easement to get there. It is gonna be additional legwork and processing. People need to understand, that part of the project.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page, because it sounds like it's a little bit of work, but it's still easy enough to follow through with. From the people that wanna do it. Which isn't gonna be everybody, it's gonna be a percentage. I would say 10 to 15% are gonna say, yeah, let's just do it. But, I don't know, because the way it did sound, it was like, well, you can't do that now. So to Ryan's point, it did sound, it was a little confusing,
It's possible
so.
to do it, just, there's some legal stuff we have to go through.
Okay.
But you're saying, Randy, that it's gonna cloud it up so much that you don't even wanna go down that road?
It's entirely up to you. I mean, yes, it clouds it up, and then you pay for that.
So
But
if somebody wants
certainly,
their water line replaced, they wait until we're done and then they come in?
they could, yeah, have a plumber replace it.
And
But
then,
not at the same time that we're doing it?
No,
and then we couldn't offer a special assessment.
no. That wouldn't offer special assessment.
So this is now different than everything we've been discussing. Is it different than what we've been discussing? in the past?
It's different than the way I understood it, you know, but I mean, I'm just one person, but that's.
Yeah, we've had all
you
these
heard a
informational
couple-
meetings, and we've done these things, and, I mean, you see the frustration.
I get
right?
it.
I mean,
Yeah,
like, we
yeah,
see it, that
yeah.
it's different every
Yeah.
time. And, you know, y'all want us to trust, and this is where it gets difficult.
So Ryan,
This is where it
would
gets
it
shady,
be,
and this is where it looks smoke and mirrors, and this is where, I mean, it just does, guys.
Yeah.
It looks like you're just rolling over on us.
Ryan, that's just not the case.
so when I
It
look,
looks
Listen,
like
we're,
it, but
we're,
it looks like it.
okay,
And
okay.
I get what you're saying, you gotta get what I'm saying too.
Yeah,
Like,
I see your point. I'm just
different
telling
every
you,
time.
it's, yeah, and again,
So we're rushing into a
we haven't
project
done
you
one of
guys
these
don't have
roads, let me
answers
take a
for.
step back. We haven't done one of these in 50-some years,
Okay,
okay? I mean, we are pretty well on uncharted territory here. I mean, and, you know, we're just putting our shorts on every day just like you are. I mean, we're learning as you go and as we go, and we're truly doing the best thing we can. But there is, I can promise you, no smoke and mirrors, and we don't want there to be a trust issue. You put us into these positions to trust you, or for you to trust us,
Right.
and please do.
and we're trying to, but you understand, it looks different every time. And I'm not trying to be a pain here, I'm just trying to point out, it looks different every time. And, you know, again, you're seemingly rushing into something you don't have answers for, which seems like every project that happens here in this city. Let's just go spend the money, let's just do it.
Ryan, should we not offer special assessments for somebody that wants to replace their sewer line from what the city's already agreed to pay for so
I'm
far?
not saying you shouldn't do that, but he's saying it's not possible. So see what I'm saying? Like you said before, it's possible. Now tonight, we're saying it's not possible. It's gonna cloud the project, it's gonna be too difficult, it's gonna delay it.
Which I understand the easement portion of it, that has to be okayed with the property owner.
But you
For the-
all along said it could be up to the homeowner. You're in my discussion.
It still is up to the homeowner, it still is up to the
It could
homeowner.
be up to the homeowner.
Yep,
But now it's after the project's all done.
no,
No.
this is before the project's done, before they're getting started.
But he's
It's-
saying, but that's not what he's saying.
Saying you can't do it.
He's saying he can't do that, right, Randy? I mean, is that what you're saying?
I was saying it really clouds the project in
Okay,
trying,
so not
in trying to
a
get it done.
can't,
That's-
not a all the way no, but it's gonna cloud it up, delay it, which is different than what we've been saying all along, that while the street's open, every homeowner is gonna have an option to do this.
Yeah, I would think that the option has to be decided before the project even gets started. So when I get to your house, Ryan, you can't say, yeah, I want to replace my water or sewer line to my house versus what's already been done.
And to that point, just to clarify, I mean, this is, and we've talked about the special assessment and then the voluntary special assessments endlessly. Before the city lets the project, we're gonna do plans and specifications. We're gonna send those out to bid. We have to identify all of those options people want when those plans go out. Once we send the plans out for bid, we're not gonna be able to add additional requests or add additional special assessments. So there's some decision points that have to be made, and they do have to be made early on. And people are gonna have to make decisions. Now, if someone makes a decision or if someone doesn't respond back to the city, because remember, we had approximately 66 property owners, 3 of them responded to the survey we sent out. Now, people may disagree with the survey we sent out, we can have a different discussion there. But if we send out information and people don't respond to us, and later they decide during construction, hey, I want my property included in this, do this, we won't be able to add it at that point. So there's gonna be one decision point people are gonna have the opportunity to make. If the council needs to elect, the council has to choose, do they want to allow special assessments or not? That is a choice the council has to make. The council doesn't have to allow that, and that's part of the dialogue that's happening, and that's part of the direction we're trying to seek from the council. Staff doesn't make policy, council does.
So I understand that.
Okay.
But my question is, so then is the decision going to be made to have Randy send out to bid what it's going to be for every homeowner? Or is he now saying it clouds it up too much that you can't do that?
No, we have to make the decision before we send out to bid who's gonna be included and who isn't. We don't send it out for everyone, and then we pick a price at that point. We have to make that decision before it goes out to bid. Now, with the special assessment, and Randy can talk about it, we have to make a estimated, what's the technical term, the preliminary
assessment schedule.
Yeah, so that has to get set, and that preliminary assessment schedule would be really the maximum cost we can charge at that point. So even if the bids come in high, that really sets us. Now, there may be a provision in there that if it's, assessment's complicated. And so I don't want to go down all of that because there's legal issues and attorneys. But when that preliminary special assessment gets set, that's normally the maximum we can charge at that point, even if the bid price comes in high. But we have to make those decisions before we send it out to bid. We're not going to send it out, we're not going to ask a contractor to bid on every service line out there if property owners don't choose that they want to be included or not. That's not how that process works.
So are you gonna go to all of the homeowners right now and ask before you even send it out?
That's the discussion we're having with council right now, yes.
And that's a possibility to do, because what seems confusing is that it's not going to be possible to go from there up to the house.
That's not what Randy said. It clouds it. Didn't say it's not possible.
I'm gonna add one more thing. What if you get the bid as a homeowner and like, can't afford that? Don't have to do it?
I don't know. I would think that we have to do it up to the cost of the preliminary assessment schedule. If the bid exceeds that, then the homeowner cannot be charged more than the preliminary assessment schedule. So if they agree to that, then they have agreed to that much minimum, or that much maximum special assessment.
And they're gonna have these numbers on this preliminary schedule when they get asked if they wanna do their water or sewer line replacement.
No, because we have to know first if they want to do it or not. And then if they do, we can put a cost to it.
Okay.
It's a difference in length.
Yep, okay.
But
So-
without having a cost, they won't know whether they want to do it or not.
Yes, that's true. It's a dilemma. I mean, to try to get into these things certainly is. But we can't give a cost unless we know how long of a pipe is going to be built.
So you're saying once they get we get the cost back, I'm a homeowner, I wanna know how much it's gonna cost, all right? when I get that cost, I can decide at that point if I want to go forward with my share of it.
Okay, we have not prepared that cost for every property to go all the way to the house.
But you don't have to do every property. You want to do the ones that he doesn't want to, but I do. I want to know what it's going to cost me. Can I say no after the cost comes back?
Yes, that can be arranged.
Okay.
You know, the discussion to date has always been to the right-of-way line.
Well, we
And-
clarified that tonight, though.
And, yeah, now you're only, the city's taking responsibility
Right.
for the first 20 feet, or whatever that number is. The rest of it,
It's on the homeowner.
yeah, it's on the homeowner for the cost, but it's, you want us to create a cost for everyone to their house.
So can you do this in 2 steps? Ask the homeowners which ones are interested? Because the people that are interested already know they are. The people that aren't are 100% against it.
Mm-hmm,
So the ones that are interested, then we get them a cost.
okay,
Is there a 2-step process we can do that?
mm-hmm.
And they can make a decision after they get the cost, yea or nay.
Because that may leave 3 or 4 people versus 60, whatever it is.
And then we only got to worry about the easement and the assessment if they think they want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Is that clear to you guys? I know you've got a question over there, and I'll get to it, but,
Kyle pretty much answered it.
Okay.
So,
So who's gonna be in charge with going door to door and making sure everybody gets asked the question, do you wanna do it?
Well, if we do that approach, we'll send a letter.
They'll be by letter.
Yeah. And then people will have to make a decision and respond to that.
Yeah, no response will be no project. And there'll be limited time. I mean, we have to put time limits on this too, in order to keep this thing moving.
is that enough clarity?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you're saying the city is gonna cover from the main to the curb, and that we have to cover from the curb to the easement no matter what? Or that's our choice?
Your choice.
Your choice.
If you choose to.
And then the special assessment, which may or may not happen, would be from the easement to the house. But none of that is clear, because before, we thought it would be to the house, and now you're saying we're not really sure if we can do that. So
Let me
none of
back-
that has to be replaced at this point to the curb if we choose not to.
Nobody's telling you have to replace everything. Our big goal is to get out from underneath the street so the street's not torn back up in the future.
From the curb to your house is on the homeowner.
If you want to.
But you're gonna send a letter with, you're gonna send a letter with estimated cost of what that's going to be.
No, it's gonna
First,
be
you're
2.
gonna send an interest letter.
It's an interest letter.
Do
like-
you wanna do it?
Do you have an interest in doing it?
Interest with no commitment.
Correct.
And then you'll find out the cost.
So before we agree to do it, you're gonna give us a cost. We can't just go in blindly with this assessment thing.
The assessment's an option for you. You definitely don't have to do that.
You can do it on your own if you want.
Randy, you make that comment about not being in there while you guys are doing, obviously, when everything's tore up, if we gotta go across the sidewalk, you're saying that you're not gonna let contractors in there until you guys are done and gone?
That's standard construction contract practice. It's actually, the project, once it's signed with the contractor, he has right-of-way control. And he doesn't want,
Yeah,
yeah,
I understand. I just
Many
make sure
people
I
in
understood
there.
that correctly.
sure.
Yes.
Is the curb the easement? Is that where the easement starts? Or is that past the sidewalk?
Easement is just on the property, on your property, correct? On the property owner's property, correct?
Mhm. The street, there's terminology. The street right-of-way on Adams Street extends to just back side of the sidewalk, maybe a foot or plus or minus. That's the street right-of-way. Now, anything beyond that toward the house would have to be done by easement on private property.
And so you're building the sewer, water, all that to the easement?
No.
That's going
No.
straight to the curb?
To the curb. Yes. Was decided tonight.
Because I know the plumber was saying that if we want to be able to do our own contracting work after, that probably want to extend it beyond the curb, the depth that it's in the ground. So we don't have to do anything to the road. So I don't know if that was going to be added in that, or if it's...
It has not been added at this point.
Okay, I'm going to take it back to where we were, and that's the driveway approaches. And the matter of hand is, we've taken the, as written in the memo, if we're just going to do 5 feet plus or minus city removal and replacement of the approach.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion.
The only thing I would add is not adding a special assessment in there, because that's obviously muddied up the water,
On driveways?
if they want to do anything further than that
On driveways?
on driveways. The city takes care of plus or 5 feet of the driveway, not offering any special assessment
On driveway.
on driveways.
Okay, there's your motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there is a second to that effect. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Base?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion's approved.
Now we're at sidewalks. And the sidewalk includes the pedestrian curb ramps, which is clearly laid out that that's city responsibility, period. And then sidewalks, that there would be an inspection process. And is the question at hand that the city, the question is for is whether or not the city takes any responsibility for those sidewalks. But then again, it involves the property owner if they're deficient, correct? Only if they're deficient. And then will they be notified of that effect also? Or is that yet another discussion?
If you want to, if you offer special assessment for that, then that would be included in the preliminary assessment schedule. So that cost of correction of any deficiencies would be included in the cost in that schedule. Now, that's a way through special assessment to advise the property owners of that cost.
Okay. So once again, we're at a decision whether or not we include it, like the water and sewer lines, or not include it like we did the driveways.
The other thing I would throw out there is the council certainly has an option of not including sidewalks in the project. I mean, obviously, we're concerned about the roadway. The council certainly could elect to basically punt on the sidewalks. Because
Good point.
that's not really part of.
Yeah.
Now, certainly, if we have construction and there's a section of sidewalk that's disrupted because of construction, we'll replace that. We always have. And then the curb ramps, the pedestrian curb ramps, those are required under ADA when we're doing a street project, that we have to come in compliance with the ADA. So historically, we've done those, and we would do that in this project. But there's nothing saying, now the council's gonna have to make a decision at some point, how do we do the inspection program? Because the courts, my understanding, have said if cities don't do a proactive inspection program, the city takes on liability of a trip and fall, where state code today places the trip and fall when the city does do a proactive inspection program on the homeowner. And so, that's the balancing act the council will have to weigh.
So in the future on this sidewalk, is this something that Rick is going to take care of on the rental housing side of it, too, with city sidewalk inspection?
Yep, I mean, that's part of his tasks. Now, certainly, he's been focusing on really two areas right now. The rental housing, getting that up to speed, and, you know, we're going through the first cycle still. The other area is nuisance properties. He's dealt with those, and, I mean, he's had a number of nuisance. I don't know how many he's dealt with now, but quite a few, right, Chief? So,
I think we could set this aside. I can think of other neighborhoods that are much worse and maybe get Rick involved in some type of plan and prioritize. And
Now,
so I think
certainly-
we could set this
now,
aside.
certainly, the council's gonna have the issue in the future of
Right.
whatever neighborhood you start with, no one's gonna like them to be the first neighborhood to go after. But
But if it is a liability problem, I think, you know, that's
I think there's enough going on
important.
on
Yeah.
this street right now that the sidewalk thing is.
Yeah.
now I tell you,
It's-
there's not an easier time to do it.
That's what I was
When
thinking.
you have a
Maybe,
road, when you have
maybe
a
have
road,
Rick look at them and then present it to the homeowners.
yep. I mean, when you have a road construction project, it's really the only time we can effectively get a contractor to come in and do sidewalk work. I mean, is that a fair statement, Randy?
I believe it is, yes.
You know, and so contractors don't want to come in and do just a sidewalk. It's really difficult to find those. And when we've had to put sidewalks in around town, it's really in coordination with the street project. We've been successful doing that.
I do want to talk about the carriage walks, though. I'm thinking if the homeowner wants to have that carriage walk back in, you know, we'll rip it out, but if they want it back in, they gotta pay for that. That's what, 2 feet? Ryan, you had one, you said, from the sidewalk to the street is what, 3 feet?
Well, it's further than that.
Was it?
Is that easement there, or what is between the street and the sidewalk? It's more than 2 feet.
Oh, I think he's talking about width.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I'm talking the
Length,
length from the,
right?
from the sidewalk to the street, how far is that?
Oh, that's probably 15.
15, yeah.
Oh, I got the wrong idea then.
Yeah.
That's a long way.
Mhm.
It's probably 2 feet wide.
And that we couldn't build it anymore. They'd have to be 4.
How many are up there in Adams, carriage walks?
I do not know the number. There are several.
I
You
don't
guys
know.
know?
Pretty much every house.
We have 5 on our block alone.
Okay,
About.
all right.
Almost everybody has one.
So I guess we gotta talk about carriage walks.
Another question?
I have a question about the sidewalks. I know your recommendation is we table sidewalks completely. If it is brought on that, yeah, we're going to fix people's sidewalks, but all the piping underneath is the responsibility of the property owner. Say, several months or even a couple of years down the road, we have to fix our service lines because we didn't do it with this project. Is the city gonna be looking at us bad because we have to rip up that sidewalk in order to service those lines?
I mean, like any property owner, when you have a service line
Right.
fail, you know, you have to remove the sidewalk and then replace it.
But your goal with the street is not to mess with the street, and that's why you're doing all this work to it. But, you know, you wanna come after the sidewalks too, potentially,
Well,
you know, and so are you saying you really don't want us messing with anything under that sidewalk too?
I think the discussion point was not to disrupt the sidewalks. Now, obviously, if you have a sidewalk and you have to replace it, it's obviously, if we replaced all the sidewalks, I think the next question would be how far do you go with the service lines? Because you wouldn't want to disrupt a new sidewalk that has old or new services under it. So I think the question is, if we're not going to replace the services, it doesn't really matter with the sidewalk. Since it's old, just leave it in place.
Like I said, I walked up Adams Street today to 13th or 14th Street and back. There's some areas that are good. There's some areas that are a little rougher than others, but typically property owners know that. So
But we're, on one side of the street where the water line is, we're gonna tear up these carriage walks, right?
Well, to the extent we tear up a driveway, that your 5 feet on the driveway is approximate. I mean, if the water line is 5.5 feet behind the curb, there's gonna be a trench and a water line installed, and that's gonna be more than 5 feet of driveway and more than 5 feet of carriage walk. So that's just a reality of it. But yes, they'll be torn up.
So you're gonna tear up 5 feet of carriage walk and leave 10? Or would you just tear out the whole thing?
No, the decision is whether or not it gets put back. And if, the suggestion is if the property owner doesn't want it, we'll take it all out.
Take it all out.
If the property owner wants it, we'll take out what's necessary for construction and then put that much back.
But put 4 foot back. Of
Well,
4 foot-
may
yeah,
have,
I got you.
may have to put 4 foot.
But you could tear the whole thing out. I guess that's what I was, if you're tearing any of it out, you're tearing it all out.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
yeah, we're on the same page, just different book.
Yeah.
I got you.
Okay.
So that would have to be a question you'd have to ask these people too. If you're tearing out a carriage walk, do you want it replaced or removed? Correct?
Correct. I mean, we do that customarily with our projects.
Those are not required anymore, or were they ever, or it just doesn't matter, they're, don't have to have them? Okay.
In fact, they probably present an issue under ADA. So it's questionable if a carriage walk meets ADA, correct?
Oh, certainly, yes. Many, most probably don't. They don't have curb ramps is one issue. And some of them have steps is an issue. You know, that's a liability issue, really.
But does ADA apply to a private property owner?
When it's in the public right
It's
of way.
in the right of way.
Oh, good point.
So when you put it back, you gotta put a ramp in that, if we want it back, to be up to code.
That,
Make it,
we'll do a little bit more investigation on that, whether or not we need a drop curb there.
So back on sidewalks, there's two different thoughts. You could just punt the sidewalks altogether and take it up at a later date with a more global view of the entire city, or we could approach it here. What is the council's wishes?
I say we punt it.
Yeah.
We're already incurring some extra cost on this to keep in our budget, so I don't know. I say we just push it off.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to that?
Well, being we changed the length of the sewer to not tear up the sidewalks, I agree, let's punt.
And then the carriage walks, just remove them all or let the homeowners decide on that?
Homeowners decide.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll second Tom's motion.
Okay, so we had an active motion and a second to not consider sidewalks as part of the project. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer?
Yes.
Pace?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Schreck? Yes. Bornero?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Is that everything?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to all of you for your input and considerate feedback as well. Thank you, council. Okay, we are on to other sledding. We have a proposal for ATV, golf cart, UTV, and snowmobile ordinance discussion. And Brad, you've done the most legwork on this.
Thank you, Mayor. Just discussion only, no ordinance to approve, so just looking at it. You guys all received an ordinance that I sent via email. It's been at least a week ago now. I had some input back, so I'm gonna pass these out to you guys that has some highlighted areas that we added, subtracted, changed, just for you to look at. I'll kind of run through. So currently, ATVs, UTVs are not allowed on city streets. Golf carts are allowed via a resolution that was passed many years ago to go to and from the golf course only. And snowmobiles are only allowed currently on our ordinance when the roads are impassable because they have not been plowed. So the idea of this ordinance is to put them all together, codify the golf carts, and also satisfy some UTV requests that we've had. The first page is definitions and the purpose. The definitions are coming right out of the state code. So I don't know if there's any questions on that part of it or not, but those are definitions are right out of the state code that was passed. UTV one was changed a year or so ago, and that's been added to this ordinance for you. The next section I would say is probably one of the more important ones is the 75.03. It's the places of operation. And it starts with ATV operation. The ATVs, we currently you see a lot of people out plowing snow with them. So what this would do is we allow residents to use their ATVs to plow snow and to travel from job to do so. Requirements would be, you have to be 18 years of age, which is of all the machines that we talk about in this, having proof of insurance, which is required by state code, and that would be the use of the ATVs. So I can't remember if the first one I sent out to you had this restriction on the ATVs or not, if we had opened up for, I think there was some other agriculture, or residential landscaping, stuff like that. I just don't know if we want ATVs cruising up and down the roads all the time, so that's not listed in this current ordinance that I had passed out to you. The next one is the golf cart, section B on that, and that codifies what is in our resolution. The only thing it does add is as the year 18 years of age with possessing a valid driver's license to operate them. Section C is the UTV, and this would allow UTVs on city streets. Again, operator 18 years of age with a valid driver's license, must comply with all traffic laws of the city and the state. There's a time frame between hours of 6 a.m. 10 p.m. The state restricts UTVs, ATVs to 35 miles per hour or less, which is what's listed here. And then we added, should have proof of insurance as required by Iowa code. All of this is just written. It's pretty, if there's adjustments that you guys want to make, let me know so I can keep notes on this and we can make any changes that you feel appropriate.
Brett, do we need to add anything about lighting after?
I do. If you look on the back, I add equipment. We talk about lighting requirements for that. So that was added. That was a new section that was put in after you guys received this. The snowmobile requirement stays the same as our current code. I think I did adjust, snowmobiles cannot be operated on city-owned trails. That was the only adjustment I think we added to this one. Section 2 for this one, unlawful operation, it keeps them off, keeps ATVs, UTVs off the parks, the golf courses, youth sports complex, keeps them off the trails. And then the second part is golf carts, same thing except for obviously allowed on the golf course, which is different from ATV, UTV. Also, we put in here the highlighted part in the very back, requirements of seat belts and no more occupants than is allowed by the vehicle by his number of seats. And that also all should ATV, UTV, golf carts all need to follow state and City of Carroll traffic code. Negligence section is part of the state code, talking about liability for injury. Parking, we would allow UTVs to park on any city streets or parking lots owned by the city as currently permitted for motor vehicles. And then the state allows for the council to restrict streets that these are on. I put on here Highway 3071 because that was a past restriction that the state had allowed. And talking to some council members, this may make it difficult for the public to know which roads, so I kind of leave that to your discretion. If we want to restrict streets or not, I would say if we do, keep it to those ones. I would not add any other ones because it'll be too hard for the public to know which roads they can operate on. Also, we have to police that. It'd be kind of difficult if you're saying Grant Road from 8th Street to 10th Street or whatever it may be. So keep it simple or maybe not restrict any at all. And the last section highlighted there is the equipment. This was added. Brakes, headlights, taillights, brake lights, seat belts, and muffler system. And then I have in the green section there turn signals. So any motorcycles are not required for turn signals unless they're 40 inches or wider. Most UTVs are gonna be 50 inches or wider, probably even 60 inches or wider, so they are not manufactured with turn signals for the most part, so it's an aftermarket add-on, so kind of council discussion if they want to add this on or not.
Brad, for equipment, looking at what was in the state code, you've added everything that's in the state code. Is there any, but they also have horn and rear view mirrors for all ATVs and UTVs. Would there be any merit to adding that?
You can easily add it
this
to
or
it
not?
also, and I don't know, I didn't ask when I was out at one of the dealers here about horns and stuff, if that's manufactured with them, or I don't know, but you can easily add that into it also.
Well, I think the rear view mirrors would be good.
I think that's about a standard option on most of them.
Are they?
Anymore, yeah.
I just want to make sure, we want to keep people safe, I get it, but, and I'm not opposed to this, but I also worry about liability. So from my perspective, to protect the city, I'd like to build in as many factors that guarantee the rider's safety as possible so that we avoid potential liability, like, why didn't you have this in our, because the city can regulate stricter than the state, correct?
Of course, yes, they can.
Okay.
And the state has quite a bit of, they list a lot of options, things that
Okay.
are in there that I didn't list in here, such as operating intoxicated, all that, but if you reference back to the city and state traffic codes, that also covers those too.
It does,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
My only question is hours of operation, 6 AM to 10 PM.
I'm very flexible with that, and it's maybe one of the things we don't restrict it. I had got some feedback, I don't recall who it was from at this point, I've talked to so many people now, but talking about hours of operation, I did find that in a different city's ordinance. I don't recall which city it was either, because I've looked at probably 25 different ones in the last 2 weeks, but, so that was thrown in there at that request. I'm flexible. These are a little bit noisier than your motor vehicle if you do hear them passing, so you kind of got to think for neighbors and stuff too if you're going to be listening to these at all hours of the night, but very flexible. All this code, I'm very flexible with and want as much feedback as we can get.
So I just have a couple quick questions. Did I read it right that they're not allowed? You cannot take them into Merchants Park, out to the children's sports complex?
Correct.
So I'm trying to understand who's gonna be, what do people want these for in town?
You can drive them there, you just can't drive them on the field.
You'd have to park in the parking lot, but yes, you couldn't be up next, you couldn't park next to the
But you can drive them
backstop
there
of
and
the
park
use.
them in the parking
Correct,
lot? Okay.
yes. Yep,
I
you just
didn't
couldn't drive
read
right
that
up to
as
the
that.
backstop or the third baseline and park there and watch a game. You'd have to stay in the parking lot like you would with any other motor vehicle.
Okay.
I think that's one thing we should try, and if we have problems, look at it as the problems come up.
Talking to other police chiefs across the state too, it's like they're having pretty minimal issues with them. Of course, if you got someone that's gonna hot rod around them, they're probably doing it in their car too, so it's the same. It's part of our routine patrol that we'll run across them and handle those issues as they come across. The penalty for it would be, we'd fall back on any state code, so if they weren't wearing a seatbelt, they could fall back on the state code for seatbelts. If it's a penalty such as driving in the parks, you can come back and issue an infraction right through this code based off that 7508 penalty that you have to appear for court and the city attorney would prosecute.
I just want to note too, there's a lot of cities that have recently adopted or have passed something. I've got a list of, I gave Brad a list when this first came up of probably 8 or 10 different places. But even places that are larger population than Carroll, Marion being one of them, of 39,000 people. Lamar's just passed something. Oskaloosa, Charles City, Knoxville and Newton had something as well, so.
And as the state just changed the legislation this last session, you're seeing a lot more cities start to add this to their ordinances.
I apologize in advance if I sound repetitive, but I've mentioned to you a couple of times that I served on the Board of Supervisors when we opened it up in the county. I believe, gosh, that was 2015, I believe it was. And we had the same questions and the same concerns. There's going to be an accident with it. I mean, it's just like they invented cars. But again, I think the underlying thing that if it's properly written and it's easy to enforce, or not complicated to enforce. And we can just open up something that's going to be available to the constituents. I think it's worth consideration. And I think it's well-written. He's taken plenty of feedback, and yet at the same time kept it as simple as possible. So I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't own one. I sure see them operated everywhere, and there's times that I wish that they were at least what's my word? Not enforced, but regulated to a certain extent. Thanks, Jeff. But I think it's worthy of consideration, and
I got one more.
Follow
Underneath
direction.
equipment, is it gonna be hard to enforce number 4?
Turn signals? I
I
don't,
mean, how are you gonna know if that thing's 40 inches or not?
I don't think they probably make one that's less than 40 inches, the quick Google search I did.
Do they have turn signals on them now from the factory?
No,
no.
at least not, the dealer I went to today, none of his did.
So is this something, just to, kind of clear up Laverne's concern and then, safety too? Is this something that can be brought down to the PD where the city inspects it?
I don't want to, we
Okay.
could,
Okay, no, forgot I said that then.
and that may be why we just add them now.
Yeah,
You've been in a parking lot or someplace
and I
and
think
someone hasn't
people
had a turn signal on it.
people
how
are
much it annoys.
responsible enough to know.
It'll
If
be
I
an
don't have a
after-
turn signal, I'm gonna get a fine for this thing.
And there is an aftermarket add-on that people could purchase to put on them if they
Yeah.
wish to.
Well, this is discussion only. I mean, have you got enough to
Turn
go
signals
on?
then, yeah, yes, no, what are you thinking on that one?
I think to add turn
think
signals, I
so.
think it's more of a safety thing.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
Down there, I'd get rid of the 40 inch.
I'd like to know if
I'm
somebody's
just gonna,
turning
yeah,
left in
turn
front
signals,
of me.
yeah.
They're as big as a car. I wouldn't expect any less than a car, so,
Then just hope they use them.
yeah. That's.
Correct.
Same as a
Good point.
car.
Yeah,
same as
Good
a car.
point. That's optional, right?
certain models.
You got enough to go on, Brad?
One other question, prohibited streets, are we yes prohibit, no prohibit? I would say keep it as simple as we can, so that the public doesn't have to second guess if they're on the right road or the wrong road. Also makes it a little easier for us to enforce too. Once we get used to it, it's just like anything else, but, your guys' call. Now, the speed limit, 35 miles per hour or less is a state requirement. Highway 30 does go to 45 when you get out towards, Motor Inn, just past Champion Ford, everything west. Also, when you go to the east, it gets to 45 miles per hour, so does that present an issue? Cars traveling 35 there on those or not, so your guys' call. 71 also would have some issue with
If
that.
somebody wants to go to Walmart per se, I mean, there's a
That's the
back
only
way to
road.
get in there,
Yeah.
and they're legal in the county.
That's correct.
So that's, I wouldn't recommend them on the highway. But there's a way to get to Walmart, and I'm just singling out Walmart, sorry, Walmart.
And that was my major concern was that speed differential. 10 miles an hour may not seem like a lot, but if you get rear-ended one of those,
Yep.
you're gonna be in for a hurting.
And all the way out to Farnerbachen, there's a frontage road there
Yeah, they
too.
got frontage roads all the way to both locations, so.
Yeah.
So just leave it as being able to cross Highway 71 or Highway 30.
Mhm.
Brad, how precise do we need to be with our language? I mean, I know you mean operational lighting, but do we need to add that? Will you be ticketing people if their lights are out or one light or this or that?
It would be like we do with our motor vehicles, so if a headlight has burned out, it's a fix-it notice, a warning notice for getting those. We do the same with a
Oh.
UTV.
Okay, so we don't need to add operational or carrying insurance with them?
I did add the insurance one, that's all highlighted in here. And
Carrying it with
but
them?
I can clean it up there to put on that, they must have possess your insurance or have it
Yeah,
available.
I think the more precise we are, then it's clear to the public. And I would like to see, even though it comes standard, you said, Kyle, the, rear view mirrors. I think if you're adding the other things, we should consider horn and rear view mirrors.
So on the highways, will they be allowed on the highway in the 35 mile an hour zone?
The way it's written in this one, no, Highway 30 or 71B would be restricted.
Okay.
Not at all. Through town or?
Just across.
Just across.
across.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't want them in the 45 zones, just do it all the way across, because if telling somebody they can ride it from Highway 30 it's about Lincoln Highway Pharmacy to Champion Ford. Then they get to that point, then they have to stop. It's very hard for, I think, citizens to know that, especially if you're just driving through or you're not from Carroll.
Okay.
It may not be the easiest thing to know.
Understand. As long as we're able, or as long as everybody's able to cross, 71 or 30.
I got a question. I got a side-by-side, and I work at Dries Oil. So I would not be able to ride to work with it?
On Highway
That
It's
could
in city limits, I was kind
that
of
could present an issue because there's no cross street there. Because Hires in 15th Street, it would be your cross
Right.
to get there. So I don't. It's your guys' kind of discussion, and it's hard. But I would say keep it simple. Whatever we decide to do.
I mean, I think a lot of people will use them as their daily commuter, back and forth to work. I mean, heck, even golf carts on Sunday, somebody wants to go buzz around town on their electric golf cart.
Right.
Can't do that on the.
Can't do that now. Can't do that.
Golf carts
now.
is to and from the golf course only.
We're not doing
Gotcha. Not sensitive, let them never turn out.
You can do it.
Just put a bigger
it's
motor
against-
on the thing.
You
gotta
can
move
do it,
faster.
but it's against the law. It's-
Just don't get caught.
Correct.
Golf bag on the back, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to answer his question, is the point at hand, it seems to me that I can understand the desire to do it, but there is an alternate route you can go,
Well,
if.
you'd have to. He could do all
Not gonna
that.
be
He'd have to
easy,
make the
I
long
get
ways.
that,
Yeah.
I get that, but to weigh out the decision about whether or not to allow them on the highway is what's mostly at hand here, and the difficulties that are foreseen if allowed.
Well, I was just thinking in city limits, highways.
It's still a US highway, Jim, it's still,
Yeah. And we do have 45 speed limits in the city limits on the highway. That was my concern, is the 45. They just, yeah, and it starts so early within our city limits. So that's a tough. I just don't, I hate to see a 45, one of these going 35 and get hit by a semi going 45.
yep, I know, yeah. And you see it all the time, they're,
Well, that's the downfall with the
Yep.
state law now on
they're
the
paid
county
by the
roads
mile,
at
not by the
35.
hour, so. I don't know, thoughts? Leave it as is or open them up?
I think you leave it as is.
If there's more thoughts that you guys have, this, like I said, this is draft. I'll work on creating an ordinance to bring back, and
Yeah. So how it works, Jim, is he's gonna bring it back as early as 2 weeks?
it'll be ready for 2
And
weeks.
then we'll have the first reading of it. We'll just choose to approve the first reading of it or not. And then we would set most likely the second reading the following 2 weeks. And then there's an option to waive the third at that point, or it goes another 2 weeks. Clear?
Yep.
Okay. So nothing's final tonight, but he just wants direction on what to bring to the council in 2 weeks. So appreciate your input on it, but sounds as though the council is just a little bit concerned about those highways.
Well, we were just off of Black Hills, South Dakota. They got the same rules, 35 mile an hour. I was on all the highways, everything. Never really had any issues.
On US
People
highways?
or anybody.
we've done it twice.
US highways?
Yeah,
Okay.
How about we try this for a little bit first and then take a look at it?
sure.
A lot of trucks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Logging,
Okay.
loggers out there
Oh, yeah.
constantly.
okay. Good, thank you. Okay, wrap it up for now?
I got what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Rita Telephone, DBA Western Iowa Networks, a certificate of completion and certificate of completion for the public and minimum improvements. Mike?
Thank you, Mark and council. On October 12th, 2020, Western Iowa Networks received incentive from the city of Carroll in the form of a tax increment finance rebate in amount up to $200,000 to complete stormwater improvements adjacent to their new building at the northeast corner of Market and Kitty Hawk. As part of the agreement, the developer did agree that it would cause minimum improvements and public improvements to be constructed on the development property in conformance with the construction plans submitted to the city. Now, the plans that were created by the architect representing the developer required that certain testing and inspections on the stormwater improvements be completed by the contractor and their private inspector. Unfortunately, these inspections were not completed. So I'm going to turn it over now to Randy, who's going to discuss a little bit about some of the review of the stormwater and junction chamber that him and his staff completed on the project.
Okay, thank you. The, there was included in the plans for the project some requirements for special inspections. Those, like Mike said, were not performed. So after the fact, our city personnel went in to do the best inspection we could. We entered the junction chamber, took a look at the inside of it. We used the city's closed-circuit TV camera to inspect the storm sewer, the inside of it. So that information, you know, we did the best we could after the fact. And that information didn't result in anything that we felt needed to be changed or replaced or repaired in that construction. So without those special inspections, we were unable to give, you know, an unqualified recommendation for acceptance of the storm sewer, but it had to be qualified because we just didn't have the information on some of the construction-related issues in the storm sewer and junction chamber.
So our request is for the mayor and council to discuss, consider approving the two certificates related to both the minimum improvements and the public improvements related to Western Iowa Networks project at 1780 Kitty Hawk Avenue. And this would be a requirement the city would need to have approved in order for us to make the incentive payments outlined in the development agreement. I would note that there's a representative from Western Iowa Networks here in person, and I believe your contractor is online on Zoom also to answer questions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the council would have this evening. Thank you.
So with inspection prior to it being completed that was not done, is there a warranty that comes with this or a backing that comes with this that may not be on the table now?
There was no warranty or bond, maintenance bond required in the construction documents. To our knowledge, this was constructed by, under contract to Western Iowa Networks, and the city wasn't part of that. So the city doesn't have any guarantee or warranty on it.
So if there's a failure, is this the city's cost or Western Iowa Networks cost?
If there's a failure after you accept it, it's the city's cost.
What are the chances of failing?
Good question. I can't really say what the chances are, don't know. I mean, we looked at it the best that we could, and we didn't find anything that we believed needed to be repaired, modified, upgraded, fixed, anything. We saw the interior of both the storm sewer and the junction chamber, and they would be acceptable viewing the interior. You know, as far as the structural capabilities of them, that we didn't have the opportunity for the inspections.
I know it's a loaded question, Randy, but at the juncture and the other item, is that where problems would most likely occur or not so much?
Oh, we don't normally have problems with storm sewer structures or storm sewer pipe. And in this case, it's reinforced concrete pipe under basically no load. It's only under their driveways pretty much, and then a little bit of earth cover. So it wouldn't expect that out of the concrete pipe. The structure itself is a large structure. It appears to be stable and strong. Once again, it's not under any load. It's just got a little bit of earth cover over it, and that's it.
Okay.
What would have been the warranty period?
If this were a city contract, we would customarily have a 2-year maintenance bond on
And how far are we into it now?
it. I am not sure when it was completed.
It's about 18 months.
Is it?
18 months.
Close to 2 years.
We're almost there. You have any problem waiting until 24 months and then you get your check?
I don't think we get a partial payment for another year anyway.
We're almost there.
Well, but our development agreement would be problematic because we have to certify the debt in December.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
all right.
yeah, that becomes problematic. Now, certainly we could go back and amend the development agreement with Western Iowa Networks and push all that back a year, but that would be discussion they would have to have.
We're almost there.
This is Mike Robinette with H&R Construction. Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. I went back and asked our guys that were on site what the deal was with this, and I think there was some confusion. The city had people out there, but in some discussions or some emails with Randy, it sounds like the city was out there doing some documentation on where this stuff was at, not necessarily inspections. And I think that our guys thought that they were there doing inspections on this, so there was some confusion there. We've got hundreds of tests, from probably 200 tests between soil and concrete on this project, and there wasn't any issues with the rest of them. So just throwing that out there, this is a structure that's in green space underneath, an area that doesn't have any traffic on it. I think we did provide all the submittals and documentation on what went into this to Randy. I don't know if Randy had a chance to review that or not. And Randy, I did end up finding some soils tests today on the, I think it was 42-inch storm sewer, if I remember right, where it crosses the paving. So we do have those to provide if you want copies of those.
Okay, that would be fine. I think it's the only paving that it crosses are the drive entrances to
Yeah, it crosses
Western
those
Iowa.
two
So
drive
if
approaches.
anything collapses, it's Western Iowa's driveways, so. As far as paving's concerned. And we did review everything that you submitted, and I had listed those in the memorandum also. The submittals that we received, were materials type submittals, shop drawing type submittals, which are a part of the requirements. But what we were concerned about on this acceptance recommendation was the actual construction review. Whether the steel was placed, whatever during construction. And that we just can't unqualified, recommend acceptance.
There it is in a nutshell. What's council's wishes? There's actually 2 certificates to improve, and they're tied together, so.
The other thing that we could do is if the city wants it, we can provide a 2-year maintenance bond right now from here on, if that would make everybody feel better.
Oh, okay.
I think that.
Certainly changes it for me.
Yep, I think that one.
Cost of that. Is there any cost to that?
No. For me, there is.
There you go.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve this with a 2-year maintenance bond.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to that effect. Any further discussion?
Can we actually maybe do 2 separate motions? for
Do
the
you
two
want,
separate-
I was just going to say, okay, so let's do it the first one for the certificate of completion on the minimum improvements.
I'll make a motion.
Motion still good?
Yep.
Second? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Dirks?
Yes.
Ordinary?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thanks, Laura. And then we'll need a motion to approve the certificate of completion for the public improvements portion of the project.
And that would be the one that would probably you want.
That would have the maintenance.
The bond
with
on it.
maintenance.
Yeah, with the maintenance bond
I'll make a motion.
2 years.
of 2 years, yep, provided by the contractor.
I'll make a motion for that.
Second.
Okay, once again, we have a motion and a second to that effect. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
Yep,
Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Item number, or D, under reports, is Carroll Rec Center Improvement Project. We have a change order, and Chad?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. During the construction on the north addition of the Carroll Rec Center, CTS discovered current soil conditions weren't adequate for proper stabilization for foundations, footings. Between CTS, baiting, RDG, we decided that geogridding was necessary for construction to continue. The cost of this change order is $29,564, and my recommendation is for this, or for the city council to consider and approve the attached change order in the amount of $29,564.
Ran into some bad soil. Can't imagine, right?
Yeah.
Any questions for Chad from the council? Is there a motion to approve the change order?
My only question on this real quick is, before they started construction, did they do soil testing on this?
They did,
And then this was found out after the fact?
correct.
So they did soil testing and then found out that it was bad after they tested it.
It seemed to be up in the air whether it would be needed for geogridding or not.
So explain geogridding.
Basically, layering of different sized limestone, rock, crushed rock, and then compacting at different levels. Is that correct, Randy? I mean, kind of a gist of it.
The gist of it, it's a fabric, geogrid's actually a fabric that was laid down and it's indicated on the drawing. And then the layers.
Sure,
are
of
built
crushed rock on top.
Above the fabric, as Chad mentioned.
Any other questions?
I'm gonna say this. This is, the only thing I don't like about this is there's a picture attached in here from 2015 where it looks like there was something similar done in that same area. I would have almost thought that would have been considered in with the bid with construction. Yeah, that's where I'm having a hard time.
And, I mean, the construction plans that were provided did not include a geogridding. Again, when we did an adjacent soil boring, you know, it was questionable if it was gonna be needed or not. And so that's one of the things is, do you put in the geogrid in the bid and have a higher bid price? Or do you wait till you get into construction and make a decision, do you need geogridding or not, and pay the price if you don't need it? You know, it's not uncommon, especially in a soil condition, when you're building up to run into these type of issues. As you get out of the ground, that's usually you start eliminating future issues. I mean, this is kind of the stage of the game that we start seeing issues is when we're kind of building out of the ground. Now certainly there'll be additional issues. We know there's additional issues already, and we'll bring them back in a future council meeting. But it's why we have a contingency too. You know, the project has about a $300,000 contingency. You know, and so, you know, we can't anticipate all the different construction issues we'll hit before we send it out to bid.
So this project has a $300,000 contingency?
Correct.
So there's a fluff on there to cover these costs?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
it's
we
in
do
the
project.
memo.
Yep. And if you see it in the memo, yep, it's all laid out in the memo.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the change order?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the change order as described. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
No.
Shrek? Yes. Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Ordinary? Motion is approved 5-1.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, we are to item 8E, which is a request to amend the private development agreement between the City of Carroll and 704 Development related to the development of Rolling Hills South condos. Mike?
Thank you, Mark and Council. On August 27th of 2018, the city approved a development agreement between the city and 704 Development related to the Rolling Hills South condominiums. A development agreement does outline the terms and conditions and did provide an incentive of $72,000 to support 704 Development Corporation's workforce housing tax credit application. That program does require a city match, and so that did meet that match. The development agreement did require that the public infrastructure be completed by June 1st of 2020, and the construction of the residential buildings to be completed by March 1st of 2021. While the infrastructure was completed in time, the residential buildings were not completed by March 1st of 2021. In fact, they're still under construction. Due to this, under the terms of the agreement, the city cannot pay the $72,000 incentive without first amending the development agreement. In the request, 704 Development Corporation noted that their project faced delays in a number of areas, including and starting with COVID-19, which is now extended into supply chain issues and labor shortages. Due to this, they have requested the city amend the development agreement and extend the deadline to complete the project to December 31st of 2023. And so before we start that, obviously there'll be some legal expenses incurred. We're bringing this forward for your consideration, and our recommendation is the mayor and council discuss and provide direction on the city should begin the process of amending the private development agreement between the city and 704 Development Corporation related to the development of Rolling Hills South condominiums. We'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening. Thank you.
So amendment to the contract for the incentive, is that something that the city incurs, or is that something on the developer?
I mean, generally, the city would pay for that cost. Now, the city would be reimbursed out of tax increment financing for that cost.
So we just add it to the TIF, is what you're saying?
Correct.
This is not the first COVID issue we've had like this.
Probably not. Might not be the last.
Just for some knowledge, what is the cost typically on a amendment for something of this nature?
I'm gonna guess with Nathan, I mean, it's gonna be several $1,000s.
So the city matched the workforce housing tax credit, and they have it, do we know if there was amendment made on the workforce housing tax credit, or do they prorate that?
I don't know all the details in and out. I do know that they did make an amendment. I don't believe they fully received all of the workforce housing tax credit because of the delay, but I don't know the ins and outs of what all transpired in that. Our match wasn't dollar for dollar. I mean, the state provided substantially more than what the city did, and our match did exceed what was required under the workforce housing tax credit program, because I believe the match is $1,000 per unit, and there are 14 units, so we did exceed the required match.
So is it essentially more than just amending the date on the agreement?
That's pretty much
And he's
all.
gonna
And
charge a couple grand for that?
I don't know, because I mean, he's gonna develop the proceedings, and there's a process we have to go through.
Do we want to get an estimate on that?
You can do that.
I'm just asking.
I don't know if it's worth the time, we're getting housing.
Yeah,
It's adding to our tax
it's
rolls.
reimbursable.
Yes, I think
Okay.
we're good to go.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
It's another cost of COVID.
yeah.
Yeah,
Been
it's
through a lot of this already.
part of the game.
So in here, when he does this, is there a way to say, you know, he only qualifies for a certain percentage if it's not done by December 31st?
We can make those changes.
Okay,
I mean, right now, it's, if he doesn't finish by then, he doesn't get anything.
okay.
Now, I did have a conversation, and originally, as they were kind of picking their date, they believed they're gonna be done in May of next year. My comment to them was, go out further, so we're not having to revisit this later. So that's where the December date came from.
Okay.
Motion still good? Okay, the motion to amend the private development agreement between the City of Carroll and 704.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bornero?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect, thank you. We are at the end of the agenda. Committee reports, none. I have a real quick, I know we all gotta go, but something I've been asked to pass along is, hello, Mr. Beardmore, my name is Daniel Belinsky. I am a film producer based in North Dakota. I'm developing a film about Harold Gifford's Miracle Landing in Carroll, Iowa in 1960. The movie will highlight the heroism of Harold and the pilots and also the heroism of the locals of Carroll, Iowa. We're planning an event on October 29th at 7 p.m. at the Santa Maria Winery. It will be free and open to the public, and our intention is to provide some insight to the local residents about the upcoming production. Wine and hors d'oeuvres will be served. I wanted to invite you, and I also wanted you to ask your help in helping spread the word. I'm doing that tonight. If anybody wants this email forwarded to them, I'll be glad to do so, and that's about that. Okay, any comments from city manager?
None this evening.
Comments from the council? Okay, we are in order for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
We are adjourned.
There you have it. Thank you.